I worked at Verizon for a little bit, so I actually do know about this. Whatever you visit on your phone on Verizon, even if you're on private browser, we know what websites you visit. We have the IP addresses of what you visit. So your phone is definitely not safe. On top of the fact that it's always recording you anyway for like Google AdSense and stuff like that. It's really messed up. But I had to break it to a poor mom who called in about like, why is my phone bill $200 extra this month? And I'm like, well, it looks like this number on your line has been using a bunch of data. And she's like, oh, that's my son's line. He's only 13. And I see here that he's going to like Pornhub and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know how to break this to you, ma'am, but he's been visiting some traffic heavy websites. And she's
what's
like,
my duty of care here?
She was pissed. She was like, are you saying my little 13-year-old boy would be? I'm like, ma'am, I can send you, literally, I can send you an email of the websites that he is visiting.
You got the receipts.
I don't. It was the craziest thing I had to fucking break to a poor mom. And
how did she end the call? I'm curious.
He's just been jacking it, like.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai. And joining me tonight, I have our average manga enjoyer, Chinoda. What the hell is this? What is this?
No line. Just
no
like
lines.
Just like like what?
What do you want?
Kawaii desu.
Kawaii desu. We have our czar of source material, John.
I wasn't supposed to be on this episode, but I fucked up and went to sleep, and then I woke up and I was like, "Oh, I'm not tired now, so I guess I could be on the episode."
Well, thank you for joining us, John. And yes, we do have a guest with us today. Guest, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name's Leo. I am Japanese translator, scanlator. So yeah.
And that is actually the topic of discussion that we are going to be talking about tonight. So before we actually get into it, big fucking disclaimer. What we're going to be talking about tonight is definitely in a legal gray area. We here at Anime Club After Dark definitely will say up front, whenever and wherever possible, please support the original creators of the works you enjoy, whether that is manga, light novels, visual novels. If wherever you are, if you have the means and the ability to support the creators of these things, please legally do it. That being said, we would be very naive and stupid to not acknowledge the fact that there are people all over the world that do not have access to these things. And that is kind of what we are going to be talking about here tonight.
So, I definitely think it'd be pretty cool to talk about what's called a bit more about in detail about that later, because a lot of counter arguments how it helps a lot of industries, like helps a lot of manga to, become a thing because it gets like famous and all that. But if it gets too famous, it can also damage it. Then companies don't want to translate it. That'd be pretty cool. Like delve into a bit more detail about that later.
And well, and I also know that in terms of the creators themselves, there are some that recognize that it gets people into the stuff that they make, and down the road could lead to more profits for them. But there's some that literally get pissed on it. Like, what was it? Maruyama got so pissed about it, he's like, "No, fuck it. Overlord ends in two more volumes. Fuck you all."
What?
Yeah. So Maruyama Sensei, the guy who writes Overlord, he was upset that people translated the Evil Eye side story. He was already upset people were Nigel and them were translating the group that was translating the light novel was translating the light novel. And then when he released the Evil Eye side story as like, I believe it was a bonus for one of the Blu-rays or something, or maybe it was its own thing. I don't remember. But it basically it was its own spin-off story about Evil Eye, one of the characters in Overlord, and in like a what if scenario. And it's a really good read. But he was pissed that people translated it because he's like, I literally made this and I get no money when you guys translate it. And it's like, well, that's shitty because obviously I want to support the guy who creates my stuff. But essentially he was like, all right, if people aren't going to like try to help me support my novel through legal means, I'm just going to cut down the chapters that I'm writing because it's not paying me enough. And I'm just like, that kind of sucks. But it's like,
completely
how do you get companies to pick up something like that? Because it's like, it's a very niche following already in Japan. How do you get a company to try to like do the logistics around translating, hiring somebody to translate it and then printing copies and then shipping it overseas and shit like that. It's like it's hard,
Well,
especially for small like specialty things.
In Maruyama's case, it's sort of like doubly a spit in the face because he's not a full-time writer. He has a regular 9-to-5 job, and the writing that he does is something he does on the side.
Right.
He's not like Ichio Isin who's cranking out novels every other week. He's doing this in his spare time from his 9-to-5 job, and it's like, God, you guys aren't even gonna let me make a little bit of money off of this side hustle I got going on.
Yeah, but
it's hard. The counter argument but what's the counter argument to that? Just learn Japanese. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, learn Japanese, buy the Japanese volume. That's really the counter argument. Like, I understand that with the legal gray area, there's a lot more exposure. Like, I don't think Overlord would be as big as it is in the West if it weren't thanks to like the let's call them fanatics who follow the light novel, who just are like fervent readers, and it's like every day Sasuga Ainsama. Like they're the ones buying all your damn merch, Maruyama. Like I get it, but at the same time, it's like I know that some groups will pick up a series until it gets officially picked up by a publisher, and then they'll be like, okay, we're not going to do fan translations anymore, which I can respect. I'm like, okay, that's fair. We can legally now obtain it, because I do see if there's a series that you just really love that hasn't been picked up by a English publisher, how do you read it? You can't. Like, learn Japanese, learn how to speak Japanese, read Japanese.
Until very recently for me, that was the Monogatari series.
Oh no.
Because until Vertical picked it up, what was it, in 2019, I think it was, it had no official English translations.
Yeah, and it sucks, but it's like, how do I consume this media ethically? It's like, you really can't.
Yeah. So, Leo, let's actually talk about you and how you got into it. So, how long have you personally been doing scanlation for?
Actually, not that long, I'd say. I'd say for around like 4, maybe 5 months total.
Oh, wow. So you're relatively new on the scene.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I think I can kind of guess what it might be, but what was it that originally got you into doing it?
Well, I first kind of took what's called let me my words for a second. So I say it's when I started wanting to learn Japanese. And I'm like, dang, I want to do something with and do something cool with it or so, right? I initially wanted to be a teacher, and then I realized, man, maybe I don't want to be a teacher thing, but I still want to do something with it. And I thought about the idea of like, oh, if I really enjoy this manga now that I'm now able to enjoy, then unfortunately a lot of people can't enjoy. But if I'm able to like access that, so that people who don't need to, spend a couple years studying Japanese and they can enjoy it, I think that sounds pretty cool. That was the biggest draw for me, I'd say, and what got me into it.
I feel like that's why a lot of people get into scanlation. It's just because like they feel like there's this thing that they love, which is like manga or light novels. Because I mean, people can do it's. I assume it's a similar process for translating a light novel. You're just not worried about moving around pictures.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about cleaning or anything like that typesetting.
But it is still translation.
When Jason was still on the podcast, me and him were reading. I forget, it's a series that got picked up by 7 Seas now, but back then it didn't have someone picked it up, and the translator group was like, all right, we're not translating this light novel anymore. So I was like, heck, I'll give machine translation a try. I'll try to put it into a machine and learn how to translate this. It went very poorly. I translated about 2 paragraphs and was like, I hate my life. I don't understand. So I'm calling it quits.
Ajay, can I talk a bit about that?
Yeah. What do you personally think about machine translation, since AI and Chat GPT is a big topic now?
Here's the thing though, right? When I first ever translations was actually fixing over a machine translated bit. So I found someone that like needed a translator, and they're like, yeah, so our previous couple of chats have been machine translated. Can you take a look at them, like fix them ourselves? So I'm like, yeah, sure, take a look at it. And I'd say like 60% of it was wrong. And it's like this very misleading, losing topic points. Because here's the thing about Japanese, right? They don't use pronouns. They don't say you. They don't say I, he, or him. They'll just like remove that part. If there's a noun, they'll just like completely omit it, because it's very, very context heavy. The problem is when you suddenly take that sentence in there and you put it into a machine translator, they don't know the context. And it's so bad to the point where like a lot of times, like I may get confused with a bit of Japanese. I'll then ask a Japanese person about it, and then I can get different responses by like several different people, because you need to tell them what's going on for them to understand what's going on. So yeah, sorry. You need to tell them what's going on so that they can translate it properly. That's what I'm trying to say. And
Yeah,
so
I've
when it comes
always
to
been
machine
told that
translated,
it's way easier to translate from English into Japanese than Japanese into English.
Oh yeah.
that makes sense. I can see that. So Japanese is extremely vague. A lot of it you have to like read between the lines and understand what they're trying to talk about because they're not directly saying a lot of it. So
Right.
yeah, and then when you put that through a machine can't figure that out. That's the biggest downturn to that.
Yeah, I know
Top
that
of that,
for
expressions.
a lot of manga people who pick up translations will be like, "Fair warning, this has been machine translated." So just putting it out
I
there.
respect that though, because the one I was doing, they didn't call it out. They didn't say that was machine translated or anything like that. They tried to just passing it off as an actual thing, and it was like blatantly machine translated. At one point, this one character said to another guy, "Oh, you wooden doll boy," but it was an expression meaning you're good for nothing. But they just put in the word wooden doll boy, and I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Wow.
Which
Yeah,
probably
when
makes
it's,
sense in Japanese in some way, but not in English.
Yeah, when you're reading stuff and you just see stuff like that, it's super obvious that it was a
Yeah,
human
like
translated.
I literally just read a chapter like 15 minutes ago where it's like he's looking at a tree and it says, "Wow, that's expensive." I'm like, obviously he meant takai, like it's tall, high. It's
Yeah.
not. I know it means expensive, but also like I knew that. Like what the fuck, guy? Like this
That's
machine
goofy, man.
translation shit.
Do you think like I don't know how extensive your interaction with machine translated stuff is, but is there any way that you notice it getting better as AI gets better? Like, do you ever think there'll be a point with machine translation where it's nearly seamless?
Could be, could not be. Because here's the thing about when it comes to Japanese in particular. Because if you were to say for like Spanish, for example, or Portuguese, probably for very well so could probably be able to just do all of it. But here's the thing about when it comes to translation, you can understand something, but there's so many different ways to go about it. There's no one definitive translation for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of view machine translation as more so like as a tool, if anything. On top of that, though, when it comes to like Japanese in particular, they'll write things very, very vague, and then they'll describe what they're talking about later on, like a few chapters later. That's why I really hate doing like ongoing series. I like to read that's already finished because again, they don't say if I'm talking about me or you or whatever, or they keep it open ended. So you're trying to think like, oh man, what were they trying to say? And then they'll show it later. Problem is that doesn't work in English. We need we need to say exactly what's going on, you know?
Right.
But
like a lot of I speak an Asian language as well, and a lot of my language is like it's very abrupt and literal. And also there's words that exist that I don't know the English equivalent to, like when you go fishing and you hook a fish, it's like feng. Feng means like to whip something back, but I don't know the English equivalent of that motion. Like it's not, because it doesn't mean whip. Whip is an actual different word. So it's like I don't know what you would call this in English. And I do understand that with like having two different languages like that, where it's like it's just extremely vague, like go here, right? That could be I go here, you go here, we go here later. It doesn't matter. It just means go here when you literally translate it. Because I've used like recently I have a shirt, a Pushin shirt that says itadakimasu, and if you try to use the Google Lens to try to translate it, it goes, "Let us eat." And I'm like, that's I know itadakimasu doesn't technically mean that, but I mean you could technically say it means that, but it's like it's a
that's a
different
word
thing, right?
That's a word in Japanese that doesn't have a direct translation. Do you know how many ways
like,
I've seen that translated like 8 million different ways?
Yeah,
in foreign languages, they just sometimes there's just words that don't exist. Like
there's
it's not
plenty of
exclusive
those,
to Japanese and English. Like Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is a German word. It's the one that means when you feel joy at witnessing someone's misery, right?
Or déjà vu.
Déjà vu, to the feeling of experiencing something again, right? But I fucking love that word, Schadenfreude, just because who speaks a language and goes, this is a feeling that is universal that people will feel. Let's make it a word. Like what the heck?
It's very German,
right?
It's a very German thing, but yeah. So I understand that if you're trying to do machine translation, it's hard for the machine to understand nuance because people speak very differently in different languages. It's not just like a set pattern. Like obviously you could say, all right, if it's a Latin-based language, like let's say Spanish and French, they're Latin-based. They share 40 to 60% of their roots. So they'll have some Latin words that overlap, and their structures are very similar with the feminine and masculine. and how they structure sentences. So for that type of language, that would make sense. But for something like an Asian language, because it's not exclusive to just Japanese. Like if you know Chinese, if you know Korean, if you know freaking Laos, Thai, Mien, doesn't matter. You know an Asian language, you understand we speak very different, backwards, different, and direct. And you kind of just have to know what that means.
As a fellow Asian, I can
Tricky.
collaborate on that. It is very true.
I am a pasty white boy who is only able to speak Spanish and English.
Yeah, it's one of the, it's just, I think that machine translation, like Leo said, as a tool, I think it does help. Like obviously, this person who's machine translating this manga that I was reading, I could tell what it was supposed to mean, but the machine couldn't. So if I were to use this machine translation, I'd be like, okay, obviously that does not mean that's expensive. He's talking about the tree, because the context is this man, he's looking at a damn tree and he says Takai. Obviously he means tall or big.
Right.
Like
one thing I'll add real fast. So you asked if like how familiar I am with it. So here's the thing, right? I'll like be very blatant about it. I use machine translation a lot. Not because like I don't understand it and therefore that's why I use it, but it can help me like figure out the sentence more so and create like different expressions that you say in English. So not
you use it as a map, not as
off.
a guide.
Precisely. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people shy away from it, but I view it as like a really, really like helpful tool to make it sound a bit more natural, to make it flow better and all this type of stuff, right? Because like again, let's say for example, machine translation doesn't understand the context. If you give it that context, if you include the pronouns yourself and all kind of stuff, it can spit out something probably really good. Or like Chat GPT, or let's say for example like Bing Chat. I remember there was one scene where like this one guy says what's called he has like these like animals pretty much, right? And it's gonna go like devour this one girl. So he says you can eat. And then I thought to myself, how can I make it sound a bit better? Because translations aren't supposed to be like 1-to-1, so to speak. So I go into Chat GPT. I say, like, what are some better ways of saying like your dog can eat or whatever? It says dinner time or something like that. I'm like, oh, I think that sounds much better. It's like, oh, it's dinner time. It sounds much better than you can go eat, you know?
So I have a side tangent. So once you learn how AI speaks, like Chat GPT AI speaks, it's very easy to identify this is AI. So like I'll be scrolling through like comments and stuff on like YouTube or Reddit, and I'm like, this is AI. Someone's using an AI bot to make this say something. No human would speak like this. Only AI would speak like this.
To be fair, I know some
pick it up.
people that are very almost not human, so I have heard them talk like a machine. So,
but can they
not
talk
all
like a machine?
not all humans?
We have a person where I work who we always make fun of the fact that we think he's actually an artificial, like he's an android, because he genuinely talks like a computer.
Yeah, like because I'm just saying there's a certain logic to how AI speaks.
Oh no, yeah, I see.
I mean, it's all ones and zeros to the AI.
Well, because again, there needs to be structure to AI, right? To robots, to how programs work. It's not as robust as people think it is. Like. I've had to explain this so many times to people about like, all right, here's the thing. AI, if you tell it to jump without letting it know how far to jump, how much force to use, it will not be able to jump. You can't just say jump and it will be like, okay, jump. Unless it has predefined parameters.
Yeah, unless you're letting it learn, like it's gonna jump the first time, it's probably gonna fail, and then it'll do it like 80 more times, and on the 81st time it'll be perfect.
I mean, yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know too much about that. I can't comment on that. But what I can say though, that there's a translator out there. It's like a mix of like it's more so like AI in a sense. It's called DeepL, and what they'll try to do is that they'll try to essentially you can edit the text yourself to make it sound more natural, and then they'll take that. So give it enough time, and I think it'll get to a point where it's like really good. And in my opinion, I get bamboozled from ChatGPT alone. I don't know. I think it sounds pretty good as is. Gonna keep it real. Me personally, but I don't know. I have lizard brain, so that's probably why.
When I was trying to translate, I was using, I believe it was True Machine machine translation or something. But the DeepL one apparently is really robust. I know that one is. I think it's AI. I'm pretty sure it's an AI one.
Yeah,
but that one, like DeepL, I've heard that one like it's more better for translating stuff. If you're trying to get into Japanese translation.
DeepL is kind of a mix. It's almost like a hybrid because DeepL it is like artificial intelligence generated, but it also takes feedback from the community and it takes that into account when it does future translations.
Right.
So it is learning in a sense. But back to what we were talking about before.
Yeah, scanlation, man. Oh man,
the scanlation. See, this is I told you, Leo. We go off on tangents all the time.
I mean, it's a pretty important point, being that so much work out there is just machine translated, unfortunately.
And it's getting like more and more of a percentage of it every day, I think.
There's been a recent tool that came out, I think relatively recently, where they can like scan the text, like the image, they'll scan the text, and it'll essentially just like typeset and all that kind of stuff like on the spot, if I remember correctly. But it's to the point where it's really, really easy. And so that guy probably did the like, oh, that tree is expensive or so, probably shat it out and like pretty fast. That's why I didn't like Bart to look it over. It's too accessible.
No proofreading.
Yeah, literally, man. Yikes.
But speaking of proofreading, so obviously there's got to be a process to scanlation, just as there is to any kind of translation work. So like for scanlation, whether it's like an individual or a team, like what's the actual process to it?
So yeah, it depends. Usually there's a team of people. When I started working, I got into a group. It was like a couple people. So like I met a lot of like really robust teams where they'll have like one person who cleans, one person who proofreads, one person who typesets, one person who translates, and our person who will quality check it all at the end. And that's too many people, man. Gonna keep it real. My issue with that though is that when you have too many people working on a project, it was cause things to take way, way too long.
Yeah,
and so
now
we're talking about like
extending all the parts where in the gaming world we call this a pipeline, right? Here's a game, it gets shit out through a pipeline. The more stops the pipeline has, the longer it'll take because it has to stop at each one before it goes forward.
Yeah.
And you can have like a natural bottleneck with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that there's a lot of like skills. You can edit a lot of things if you can like know several parts of it. For example, personally, I can translate, clean, and typeset it myself. And it helps a lot of times because I'll be typesetting it, and then it helps seeing everything on the page. And then I can adjust it because I know what it's trying to say, make it flow more natural, that kind of stuff. But you have several people on there. For some reason, most typesetters I've heard of don't know English very well, and so they can't proofread. Yeah. They'll have someone else, so they'll kind of like outsource this to an Indian. We're going to that example, right? So like, okay, we outsource this guy over here, but he just writes things down, doesn't really get what's going on. Then ask the proofreader about it, but then it kind of becomes a game of telephone to a degree. And so it takes more time to ask the translator, oh, hey, translator, can you like take a look at this, see if it's all right? And yes, like look through the script, the original script or the Japanese script, and like make sure everything's all good and like it sounds flowing nice and all that kind of stuff. All right, well, this needs to be changed now. Then you bring it back over to the typesetter and just like, that's too much, man. So yeah, I think that's why I was taking a look at a lot of scanlations, and it seems like it's around like a chapter every 2 weeks, every 2 to 3 weeks. Say that's about fair. And I don't know. Personally, I do it bi-daily, something like that, because I just have a group of like 2-3 people. But because we just like streamline it so much, you just like churn it out, so to speak. So yeah, I think it's much rare finding a group of like 2 people or 3 working on something. It's usually like relatively robust. But yeah,
like an actual like an assembly line,
a full team.
Yeah, I think it's because like this though, because let's say for example, a lot of people want to get better at being like artists. For example, they'll be like, oh, I want to get better at drawing my art, therefore I'm gonna go join a team, and they'll do that. Or someone wants to practice their English, for example, let's do proofreading instead of them being interested in doing several parts all at once. Right. So it's kind of like someone would go into, like, let's say for example, a Discord channel, and they'd be like, oh, I'm a proofreader, and then just go into random different series, just trying to proofread as much as they can on a bunch of other different things.
So stepping into the Wayback Machine about 30 years ago, before a lot of people were not born, a lot of people who did translate stuff in like the 90s and the early 2000s, a lot of them were college kids, and they were just doing it because it was a project for them to help improve upon. They're like, hey, I'm learning Japanese already, so I'm gonna do this as kind of a project, and that's kind of like where a lot of it comes from, of like I'll use this as something, as an excuse to practice my skills, which is actually, I mean, it's a lot of work. There's actual jobs to doing this and stuff, and it's like, all right, well, we're gonna discuss like, okay, if you do this for free, you're really like, for example, editing, sound editing, or just word editing, like novel editing. If you sell your skills for free, you're destroying the market, because this is a legitimate job that people are supposed to be paid for. Like a text editor, for example, for proofreading books. This is someone that's going to charge you baseline per hour and also per amount of words that you'll have in your text. And you have to pay them like a couple $100 to read your, I don't know, 5,000-10,000 page essay or something. And having services that are like, oh, I'll do it for free. And it's like, it fucks that up.
Did you say 10,000 page essay? That's the longest essay ever written.
10,000 words. My bad. 10,000 words.
10,000 page
10,000 pages. And maybe
you out here rewriting the fucking Bible like 5 times over in your essay.
But my point is, like, as an audio editor, for example, like my skills, as an editor in general, my skills, they're about like it's the same problem that we have with, what are they called, like Fiverr website, gig websites. The cheaper you sell your skills, the more you're going to fuck the market. And this goes for any type of skill. For editing, for example, audio editing, people generally charge $45, $50 an hour. Plus there's like other fees and stuff. Like, how much do you need me to clean? Do you need me to add sound effects? And there's like a whole list of like, this is how much it's going to cost you if you want me to do a bunch of stuff. If you want me to professionally mix and edit it like a studio, you're going to pay me like I'm a fucking studio. And
Page Noda. This is John telling us we owe him a bunch of money.
Yes, you guys do owe me a bunch of money. Well, I mean, I own the company, so all residuals are mine anyway. Who cares? But anyway,
there you
go. But it's the same thing for voice acting. You know, if you want to be a voice actor, if you do things for free, like for exposure, you're fucking killing yourself. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Like, you got to know your worth. So it's kind of another weird gray area with that, with scanlation and fan translations, because it's like,
can I give my counter argument to that?
Yeah,
yeah, please.
All right, so my first couple, I mean, couple dozen of chapters I released were like rough, like really rough. And so that's another reason why I do it for free as well.
Just like the first couple dozen episodes of this podcast are pretty rough.
A lot of so going back to the whole college kids practicing their skills thing, they did it for free because, one, it helps polish their skills, and they were rough too. Like, if there's a hole, it's a man's job to fill it. Like,
exactly, man.
Like, that's the roughness.
Vaguely
of
sexual,
it, right?
John.
That's from. Do you not know the meme? Like, this is. From
I didn't take it that way.
There's a 90s mecha show where someone translates it, where if there's a hole, it's a man's job to fill it.
I have never heard this. Is this from
like
Gundam?
Saying, I think it's from Gundam. It's from the 90s, dude. But like,
that's
this was something that a college person translated, because they're like, well, I mean, that's technically what he means. Like, there's an emptiness that it's a man's job. There's a void that it's his man's duty to fill or something, right? But it's like, how do you translate that into English? It's like, if there's a hole, it's a man's job to fill it.
This sounds like something Miura would write into Berserk, just much more eloquently.
Yeah,
fucking
but like,
legendary.
I understand that when you're doing things for free, if there's obviously a certain level of like professionalism, right? Like, obviously, if you're doing it as this is a side gig, it's not professional whatsoever. Sure, I don't think you should charge for that, but at the same time, you can't go into spaces like gig spaces and be like, undercut people if you are trying to get into it as a job field. Like, you got to understand there is a base price that everyone should be charging.
Let's say, for example, though, like, you're not very confident in your skill. Like, I can do it. It's not really rough, but I wouldn't say it's great either. So to charge it the same as other people isn't fair. But let's say, for example, you're not aware of your own worth, or you need that first, like, let's call it resume, so to speak, to then be able to charge yourself more and justify it.
Yeah.
So I think that's
to that. I'd say, go talk to other people in the field. Go talk to your cohorts, people who are also doing this job. Show them, like, look at their quality, look at and talk to them. You'll reach out. Like, no one's gonna be like, I'm not telling you my fucking rate. Like, no, most people will be like, oh yeah, no, this is how much I charge for this. Like, because the better that you know your worth, the more we're all gonna be worth. That's my.
That's good advice, man. I gotta take.
I'm just saying, that. Leo. Like,
yeah, no, that's fair. It's fair.
It's also a great way to gauge your own skills too, because then you can compare your skills not only against how you used to be, but what the current level of skill is with the people you're working with or potentially working with in the future.
That's right. Damn, that's some solid advice. Yeah, can't go against that.
So I guess my next question would be timeline. So I have to figure in terms of working with a scanlation team, there are things that have to be done first before other things can be done. So in a typical, like when you're a typical chapter of a manga, say, that comes in, like what's the timeline? What has to be done first, then second, then third, and so on?
I'd say so. There's two things where it doesn't matter the time. That's like the translation, because you can translate like just a couple dozen chapters ahead. Cleaning it, you can just clean a couple chapters ahead, doesn't really matter. But then when it comes to like, let's say for example, proofreading it, you could proofread it once the translation is done, or you can just proofread it once the typesetting itself is done, which I think is more it's called efficient, so to speak. So yeah,
so have we clarified like what the positions are in a translation team?
No, we haven't. We should probably talk about like what we're talking about
like,
with proofreading,
typesetting. I read a bunch of manga, fan translated manga, but like, so obviously we know what a translator is, but what would a cleaner do, and what would a typesetter do?
Oh yeah, so what a cleaner would do is essentially take all the text and remove all the text, or if there's like background stuff, there might be a thing I would redraw as well. Sometimes there's two different people. There'd be one person just for cleaning out the text, and a person that's really good at drawing. Usually the person who wants to improve their drawing skills, or just both. Very common. But anyways, so that's what a cleaner is. As for a proofreader, they'll like take a look at the grammar for it and make sure everything's grammatically correct. On top of that, they can maybe just completely change the script itself to sound a bit more natural in English. Maybe throw in like this part sounds kind of stiff, so I'm gonna like, use an expression that captures that same idea for it. So that's what a proofreader is. And then there's a typesetter, who essentially takes all those the words from the translation document and puts it onto the manga itself. And then finally, there's like the quality checker. Kind of extra in my opinion, I don't know, but they kind of read it over it, make sure like, oh, this is like not centered properly, or this could sound much better, and all this kind of other stuff that you look at the end. But that's why I also think that it makes more sense to like proofread it while you are typesetting it, because then you can do that, so to speak, a quality check at the end as well. But
all right,
yeah.
Good explanation, thank you.
Yeah,
of course.
And then I assume like with different groups, obviously it's different for how they have it set up. Like I don't know like the ins and outs of a lot of translation groups, but there is one that's kind of very public about what they do, and it's a group called JoJo's Bizarre Colored Adventure. And there's a group that not only are translating JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, they're also going in and painstakingly coloring every single panel of the manga.
Holy shit.
Geez.
And so not only do they have people who are doing all the regular stuff, the cleaning, the typesetting, the proofreading, they also have actual artists that are adding stuff to it, which I feel like is an extra dimension that most translation groups don't do.
Definitely.
No, most companies don't do that.
Yeah. But they do beautiful work. And they've even added stuff to the manga. I've talked about this before, but one of my favorite things that any translation group has ever done for stuff that they're translating is for a specific chapter of part 5 in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. They actually added a bunch of like flavor art to the margins of the page that was not there in the original publication. And it really made the art not only pop, but it also was very appropriate for what was happening in those panels.
That sounds crazy.
Yeah, they do great work. I know there's at least a couple of those people who I believe have gone on and gotten hired by actual either translation teams or by like manga publishers in Japan.
Oh shit.
That's a big reason why a lot of people do this, honestly.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about that too. Like in your experience, obviously you haven't been around for like a decade plus, but do you think that there is like an actual pathway for people who start out doing this to get into like the industry legitimately?
Almost certainly. So I actually looked at other translators and on their takes about it. And so I remember listening to this one interview where a girl asked like, oh, how has scanlating has affected your career wise and all that? Because a while ago they're talking about how it could like damage the industry and all that kind of other stuff, like the shady legal area with all of it. But they said that actually greatly improved their chances of getting hired because it acts like a resume, so to speak. Then you can show people, oh, hey, this is my translation skill. I do pretty good translations, all that kind of stuff. So that way they know that you're legit. On top of that, if you hire them, they don't feel the need to do scanlating for free and rather just, release something official. Which kind of like
talk about valuing
the end goal for everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's got to be a pathway forward because like there's a lot of mangaka. I won't say a lot. There's a significant amount of mangaka that are working in Japan today that started out doing doujinshi. And doujinshi is in kind of the same legal gray area that scanlation is. It's just that for a majority of like manga publishers, they've decided to turn a blind eye to it because they know in the end it helps them.
Wait, question. What can we define doujinshi? Because I know like in English it just means like porn.
Well,
but
I am kind of meaning it that way, but I mean any kind of fan created
because doujinshi just means uploaded by one person, like so just one person working on it.
Yeah,
so it'd be something wholly original.
A lot of it tends to be, straight up porn, but like not all of it. There are a good amount of doujinshi out there that are just their own stories, and it's fantastic.
I think the reason why we think about that is that we only see like the porn essentially get translated over here because
you don't have all horny.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, but I mean, some of those people that started out doing doujinshi porn end up being like legit manga creators, like the creator of
Nagatoro,
Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
Yep.
Yep, him too. Yep.
I believe the author of was Food Wars as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The creator of Food Wars. Also, that's how they got started. I met him at Anime Expo a few years ago. He's an interesting character.
That's great.
I mean,
but let's say for example, like aside from just, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, aside from just porn, but like slice of life, for example, that kind of stuff, they can just make doujinshis, make some like good, like 7-page stuff, like real quick stuff to also branch out there. So I'm not sure how that would damage the industry. I think that's what you're trying to say earlier, but may not remember that right.
And not to alarm anyone, but a very popular YouTuber started out as a doujinshi artist too. Ahoy!
Man. Oh, really?
Yeah, Hosho Marin started out as a doujinshi artist.
Hell yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why she wants people to draw porn of her.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I guess you've kind of like touched on this a little bit, but obviously you have knowledge in the Japanese language. If someone wanted to get into like translating with a translation group, is it necessary for them to have a strong background in Japanese or no?
Can you define strong background for it?
Enough to where if you went to Japan, you could have a conversation with just about anyone.
Yes and no.
How Nihongo Jozu do I need to be a translator?
Relatively Jozu, but I don't think as Jozu as you might think, so to speak. Because there's a lot of tools out there to be able to figure out what they're trying to say if you get confused or so. You can like learn a lot while you're translating. And so I actually met this one Russian translator, and it was a couple of months into him learning Japanese that he started doing translation work. The reason why it was scanlation, I mean. But the reason why he was doing scanlation is that actually helped him improve his Japanese. Right. So it wasn't the fact that he was super Jozu and that's why he was doing scanlation, but the fact that because he wasn't so great, that it helped him improve even more. So yeah.
And I would imagine it kind of depends on what you're actually doing in a scanlation group. If you're a proofreader and all you're doing is just proofreading the English that's already been translated or the Japanese that's already been translated, it helps more that you are very familiar with the English language.
Right.
Oh, easily.
Right.
Side tangent. I don't know if every person who watches anime and reads manga goes through this phase of like, I'm gonna learn Japanese and learn how to translate myself.
Hell yeah.
I definitely went through that phase.
I've been watching anime, reading manga and shit since 1996. I never had a phase where I wanted to learn Japanese.
Okay, like
I had a brief phase when I was very young because I was like, I'm tired of freaking waiting week to week for new whatever to drop. I'm like, let me start looking into learning this. I took a look and I was like, all right, let me try. I gave up so damn quickly.
I remember, holy shit. So I wanted to take Japanese in high school, but my older sister was like, no, just take French. I was like, okay, if you let me cheat off of you, I'll take French because I have a couple who lives in France. So I parlay a little Francais, just un peu. But
there you go.
I wanted to take Japanese because I got into anime and stuff in like 7th, 8th grade. So this is when I was like, this is my phase, right? Where I'm like, I'm turning into a weeb. I'm metamorphosizing right now. So I was like, I'm gonna take Japanese.
Hell yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna learn how to speak Japanese. Blah blah blah. Like I have Rosetta Stone in Japanese. Like
that's wonderful, man. Fuck yeah.
It was the worst. I hated that phase. Like I was so bad. But recently, because I've been watching for like God, since 8th grade. Let's see, like over 10 years now. I've recently been watching certain animes where I'm just like, I don't want to look at the screen, so I'll just listen to the Japanese. And I'm like, I know a little bit of Japanese, so I can kind of get what they're saying and what's happening, and I don't have to watch the screen. So I'm like, maybe I should improve upon myself a little bit and be able to like understand at least conversational Japanese. Like I can't read or write, but that's fine as long as I can understand. I'm okay with that.
See, one of the biggest flex I never thought about. So once I got pretty good Japanese, I could like just listen to it in the background, whatever. I'd be hanging out with friends, and I can eat stuff or like just do other stuff and still catch along with the story. Feels so good, man. Because their eyes are just glued to the subtitles.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's right. You just like because I'm so Nihongo Jozu now, bro. Like I can understand. Oh man.
My eyes are closed, so I get it. Look at me, my eyes are closed.
I definitely like experience that when I watch anime. Like most anime I watch now, I watch subbed, but every so often I'll go back and watch something that's been dubbed. And it's a completely different experience because I don't have to be focused on the screen 100% of the time, and it's like it's a completely different experience.
See, my girlfriend, she actually does that. She actually look through it all first and subbed, and then just watch it dubbed again because it'll be like good background noise. So like she's seen like One Piece like fucking twice now, but it's because like it's just in the background and she just do something else.
Is she like 800 years old?
For real, man.
You have to be to watch One Piece twice.
Dude, I'm on like episode 40, man. I can't find more time to keep continuing, man. Oof.
Man, he talked to Natai. He watched like the entirety of One Piece over like 2 weeks.
Who watched it?
I don't know how.
My guy's watching it in his sleep.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know how, but I guess. So let's actually talk a little bit about specific sayings. So in English, as is it true in Japanese too, there are sayings that don't really translate very well. So when you get one of those in a manga that you might be translating, what do you think is the best way to handle? Like, how would you handle that, or what are some ways you've seen it done, perhaps where it wasn't handled bad, or what wasn't handled well?
Before I get into like ways I haven't seen it handled well, I want to say how I do handle it. So here's a case where I think machine translation does a pretty good job. Because again, if you put it through like DeepL, for example, they won't just give out like a super direct translation or so that doesn't sound right. They usually find some kind of way to go around it. And if not, if you understand what it's trying to say, you can also ask things like ChatGPT or like Bing Chat. Oh wait, this is like the general idea here. What's a way I can rephrase that? And it'll give you a whole bunch of different rephrasings for it. That sound natural in English. So yeah, that's usually how I go about that personally. I think it's very nice. As for really bad examples I can think of, I want to go over Resident Evil like 1 and 2, like the original like Resident Evil games, because they sound like a really, really stiff and like very campy, right? But I think a lot of that is due to this poor translation. Like you guys heard like the Master of Unlocking scene, right? You guys are aware with that?
Yeah,
I know.
I personally love the original Resident Evil sound like voiceovers because it's like it's so bad.
It's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, I love it.
Oh,
I would argue that's
Barry,
part of what makes it iconic.
You were almost a Jill sandwich. Is that
no, that was good. It's so good, so good. But no, you're good, you're good. But one point I want to mention, so there's a lot of expressions that are like exhausted, super, super overused. Like, I bet you guys all heard, well, it can't be helped, huh? You know, like Japanese equivalents like shogunai na. But yeah, I was being aware if something's like overused a lot of times and just trying to switch it up. So what's another way you can like give that idea of, or like let's say for example, they use the word like you're boring, like, sumaranai na, so like oh you're really boring or so. You might see that be translated as you're no fun, and like other ways to go about a bit of flavor text, right? But another thing I want to mention as well, so the way the Japanese is structured, they'll give a whole sentence and then use the noun at the end. So they'll explain it. So like, oh, you, the master of unlocking, Jill, or so like they'll give us whole thing and then put it at the end. And it sounds very, very stiff. And again, that's why I think it's also nice to use machine translation all the time, because that's how when I'm looking at Japanese, I'll view it directly like that. As like they're giving this whole little sentence and then that at the end. And the way you'd put that into English sounds very stiff. You can make it work, but it doesn't sound right. Put through machine translation. Oh, okay, that's how you can rephrase in English. Sounds better. And then you can play on that and expand upon it.
I mean, there's also like so I don't remember which anime it was where in the English dub they decided Gochiso-sama was like rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub. Like, I want to say
I
it
like
was,
that. I like
was
that. That's
Squid Girl
that's
or
excellent.
something. But like,
You gotta be squidding me.
I like that one because it's like she uses Ika puns, but like there's obviously again like Gochu Soul Sama like that. Thanks for the meal, rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub. Like
I
there's
know what you're talking about.
rub-a-dub-dub, thanks.
I know, I've heard this too, and I cannot
Yeah.
for the life of me remember
So
where it's from.
rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub is like an English colloquialism for like thanks for the food, and it's usually said by people like who are from the sticks. So obviously for a
Just
for
say
this company, this
rednecks,
production,
John. Just say rednecks.
it's not just rednecks, man. The people in anyway, it's like it's a colloquialism for us English speakers to understand. At least if you American English is like this is someone from the sticks. So this is how they would speak. So that's why they would use that to try to relate it. So it's like so I guess the question here is like how do you translate certain other Japanese sayings like gochu sama or itadakimasu to an English speaking audience? Because obviously you're right, there's context involved. Obviously a person from the city saying is not going to eat gochu sama from the city is not going to be meaning like they're from the sticks, like if, in case there's an accent and stuff like that, because there's also different dialects and stuff in Japanese, correct? And
Right.
like because of these dialects, it's like well they're speaking more of like a country bumpkin, like people from up in Hokkaido, for example. I know the Hokkaido accent is like it's mountain accent.
I like how a lot of Japanese or a lot of like anime translations, like sub translations, they do now. If a character has a heavy Kyoto accent, they always translate it with like apostrophes in the place of missing vowels, and it's like how people speak here in the South.
Oh, where they just skip vowels, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
That's
Kansai?
great.
Is it the other dialect I think I'm thinking about? Which is
That's
like,
another one, yeah.
Yeah. I know for some
about
reason,
the-
I guess from what I've understood, the Kyoto dialect is thought of as like unintelligent. I don't know why.
I don't think so.
I mean,
But
I don't know if that's true or
Kyoto
not.
was
I
like
just heard
the
people
old,
say that people
capital,
think
so,
it's
like,
unintellectual.
it's kind of weird. I don't know.
no, I do know a lot of like it's called more obscure dialects kind of get clowned on a little bit because they don't like showing off too much that it's called you're from like the sticks or for example or something like that terms. So they'll use like a more like common dialect, use like Tokyo dialect or so. But I need to look more into that to be honest. But as to what you said earlier about like how you take care of that situation, a lot of it matters on the character itself. Because let's say, for example, that character I said like, oh, rub-a-dub, thanks for the grub, if I remember that right. If that was a character that came from the sticks, for example, and it's an amazing translation. But of course, it doesn't work for every single person. But it's about the general idea. What are they trying to say? Okay, they're saying they're thankful for the food. And like, what's some like other ways you can say, like, let's say for example, if it was like a really formal character, what's a very formal way of saying like, oh, thank you for the meal or so, you know? There's a bunch of ways you can go about it. I can't think of any specific things right now, but yeah.
I think it's very context specific. Like it really matters based on what you're translating. An example of this that I love to point out, where it's actually good localization that completely changes the meaning of what's being said, is in the Monogatari series. First of all, bless the people who had to translate this shit, because I don't know if anyone's ever read or watched the Monogatari series, but it has so many like Japanese colloquialisms that I don't know how it ever got translated properly, but it did.
This is why it took forever to get freaking picked up, because it's actually super hard to translate.
No one wanted to do it.
There's a scene in Bakemonogatari. It's the cat, the famous cat tongue twister. And in Japanese, it's like an actual like Japanese tongue twister, just with the nyan accentuated because it's cat roll. They didn't even try to translate it literally. They inserted an actual English tongue twister that is not in any way close to what's being said, and
Makes sense.
works. It works. Like you get the idea that it's
you don't need to know the actual text of what's being said. You just need to understand that it's a tongue twister that's being said here.
Yeah. But that's a good example, I think, of a translation where you can completely change what's being said and it still works.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, reminds me if we can go into a quick side tangent. I talked about this with someone the other day. talking about like, translation notes and all that kind of stuff, because I was talking to them about direct translations, and like a lot of times like what you're reading isn't close to what the Japanese is saying whatsoever, right?
All
And they're like,
according
oh
to
no, I should like
Keikaku.
the yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they'll be mentioning about like, oh, I really like the translation notes and all that kind of stuff, because they want to be more like what they're trying to say and really give off what they're saying instead of like it coming off as like fan fiction. And I think this is the thing, right? It's really easy to try to make it sound a bit more natural in English and then just completely fuck it up. And then it would just sound really like off, or like you kind of go off on a bit of like fan fiction territory in a sense. If you get what I'm trying to say, if you get the idea there, but if you kind of skewer it a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think
But
that a lot of
yeah.
the reason I brought this up was because a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to translate Japanese into English when there's things like the context of certain words, like when Luffy says "ore nakama," right? Like my friends, right? Like the context behind how he's saying it, it's like he means it very deeply. Like it's started just saying my friends. It's like my bros or something, but it's obviously you can't just like my bros, dude, my bros, because Luffy doesn't talk like that. But it's it's such a contextual language that it's amazing to me that people even still want to keep trying to translate it instead of just doing literal translations and just picking what works best, because it's definitely a skill, because you got to be very linguistic, you got to be very conversational.
There was a really good example of this in the English dub of Your Name. So there's a joke, I'd say it's about the midway point of Your Name, where I guess a little bit of spoilers for Your Name. The big like thing of it is it's body switching, and one of the main characters, who is a girl in a guy's body, is talking to the guy's friends and uses a feminine like identifier for in a guy's body, and he goes she goes ore boku watashi
Yeah, I remember that.
I thought that was really
how did they
well.
translate that as?
In the English dub, if I recall, it was done. They didn't even use pronouns at all. It wasn't even done in a gendered way. It's like something to the I don't remember the exact words. Forgive me, but it was something to the effect of they use time. Yesterday, today, tomorrow.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because that would be that's like one of the jokes that it's hard to translate in English. So
should I explain that real fast too? What they said. So yeah, so in Japanese, what you said was like so like atashi means I, but it's a very feminine way of saying it. Boku it means I, but it's kind of like a bit more of like a boyish way of saying it, or like kind of like it's kind of standard, right? Watashi, very very standard, it's kind of like gender neutral, and ore is like the masculine man or so, right? And so, but the thing is, they all translate to I. Or me. So like it doesn't work. So yeah, they had to be creative about that, and changing it to time I think is pretty cool.
I mean, it's like in Spanish. There's el, la, los.
Right.
El gato.
El gato.
La
gata. and if you're a woman, you don't want to go to el baño. You want to go to la baña.
There you
go. Yeah, I think it's interesting for me seeing the different ways that some translators handle translations like that, where there isn't an obvious like direct translation between Japanese and English, and it can be done very poorly. And I think it's easier to do it poorly than it is to do it well, especially if it's saying or a way of speaking where you're forced to actually change what's being said. Like in the case of what they did with Your Name, or with the tongue twister with Monogatari.
Well, like the so in, for example, Black Lagoon in the anime, there's a part where I believe it's season 2. Yeah, in season 2 when Rock goes back to Japan. So the entirety of Black Lagoon is actually supposed to be being done in English. Like when he meets Revi and Balalaika, and when the main character Rock meets oh my god, Duke? No. Benny.
Which one? The dude?
Dutch. Benny, Dutch, and Revi. He's speaking English to them because Revi's Chinese American, Dutch he's Black American, and I believe Benny is German or something, but they're all speaking English. So they're supposed to be speaking English this entire time. And one of the hard things to like dub for that, the English dub was like, well, when they go back to Japan, Rock is being brought along by Balalaika, who he's communicating to in English, but everyone else there is obviously speaking Japanese, and they don't understand what like anyone else around Rock is saying because they're speaking English. So it's like it's one of those weird situations where it's like, okay, we're supposed to suspend disbelief that this is being done in English, even though it's being done in Japanese in the original dub. But then when you translate it to English, it's like, okay, now we're actually speaking English. So it's hard to translate it now because it's like, all right, now they're not having the same conversations. And it's like to try to evoke that feeling of like, okay, how do we translate this scene of like, so there's a scene in season 2 where Revi is saying the guy at the carnival is cheating because she's trying to get this prize, right? And she's yelling at him in English, but he says to her like, "You're in Japan, speak Japanese, damn it!" But it's like obviously Revi doesn't. Like, you can't. How do you translate that when it's all being done in English? And it's like you kind of just get the general feel of like he just gets mad at her like, "Hey, what do you think I'm a cheat?" And it's like, okay, yeah, I guess I can get it across, but.
They did something. They did something kind of like that in Vinland Saga, the first season, because obviously in reality they're speaking they're speaking Japanese to each other in reality, but in the story they're supposed to be speaking like Anglo-Saxon and the languages of the day in that period, right. In that area of the globe. And there's a scene where someone yells at Askeladd, I forget who it was, about not being able to speak the language of the Welsh properly, and then the Japanese voice actor, to their credit, just starts speaking Welsh.
Oh man,
just out of nowhere.
But probably sounds very jarring as well.
Oh, yeah. It was
like, yeah.
The same thing happens in Durarara. Where what's the guy's name that owns the restaurant? I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's speaking to Isaiah, and the first thing they say to each other is in Russian, and that's supposed to be a hint to you, the audience member, that this entire conversation is being done in Russian in the story. You're just going to hear it in Japanese.
They did that in Great Pretenders as well.
I just assumed it was Japanese.
No. That specific conversation, those two characters are supposed to be speaking Russian to each other, and like them starting out, the first two things that they say to each other are in Russian in the dub. That's supposed to be like a hint to the audience, like, oh, okay, the rest of this is going to be in the language that you're speaking, but this actual conversation is meant to be taking place in Russian.
Yeah, I think what you meant. This went over my head when I was watching it, though. I'm like, oh shit. I thought it was a cool little greeting. Anyways, so you're saying about what's called the Great Pretender. The same thing kind of happened, but didn't they have like a little like thing in the bomb saying like, oh, switching over to Japanese now? But it's like imagine that they're speaking English.
The first 5 minutes of the show take place in English.
Yeah, they'll start off in English, but then they'll transition over, and it's just like I kind of like that because like one, it's it's pretty hard to listen to some Japanese people try to speak English. I get that English is English. Eiga muzakashi, like it's hard. I get it.
Right.
But it's like I personally would have preferred the whole route of like just pretend that they're going to be speaking in English, but speaking Japanese.
Just hand wave it.
Just hand wave it.
Hand wave the shit out of it.
It's like pretty jarring.
The scenes where they make Revi's voice actors
speak actual English,
not good.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Give me fluent. Yikes, man.
All right.
Oh my goodness.
Next question.
Yeah. So I guess we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but we can get in a little bit more to it. I know John I think it was John that put this on here. So how do scanlation groups handle this concept of sniping? And maybe do we want to talk about what it is?
I put this in here because I read a lot of manga, so I do know about like sometimes groups are assholes and they snipe series from each other.
Drama online, John? No.
I mean,
that's a lot of drama sometimes in the space. Not gonna lie.
Well, of course, any space has drama. Yeah. Any space.
I get it. Like, obviously, if a big scanlation group is supposed to be doing this project and it's like they're running late or something, and you're like, okay, well, I have free time. I'll translate it for whatever. But then like there's like the whole like it's kind of like the mafia, right? Where you can't go to their territory and their turf. Like you selling on our turf, punk, and you didn't even pay respects to the Don. Absolutely not.
I'll say this. This is coming from someone that wants to snipe so bad, dude. There's so many series I want to snipe, man. I can't
do it.
Bro, they're so slow. They're so slow, bro.
I get
Like,
that.
they upload once every couple of months, bro. I'll take out the series in a fucking month, man. Oh my god, dude, I can't. Oof. But about that, so let me explain what sniping is for people who don't know what sniping is. So essentially, what sniping is that there'll be there's a translation group that's doing one series. And then someone else would come in and just be like, oh, you're doing that series? Cool. Well, I'm going to start doing it right now then as well. And they just come in, then they'll start pumping it out as well. And then there's a bit of like, oh, yo, bro, what the fuck? That was my series. And you just kind of came in here and just took it out of nowhere. That kind of sucks, you know?
Yeah, like there was a series I was reading. Sorry to interrupt you, Leo, but there was a series I was reading that got sniped by this really shitty translation group. And I was so pissed. I was like, at first I was like, oh, look, there's like 20 new chapters and they're all just machine translated, no editing, no cleaning. And I'm just like, they just pasted white little text boxes. And I'm like, I hate this. Why the fuck? And it's like,
yeah, it's garbage.
It was garbage. It was garbage translations. And it was just so infuriating when snipers come in. Like,
it's so infuriating. He took his glasses off.
Reading.
Yeah. So like there's certain, obviously like sniping is no good. Like if it's a series where someone hasn't translated in a while and they're just like they've been gone, I don't think that's really much of a sniping as it is. Like, all right, well, you haven't been online for like 6 months, dude. People have been waiting for new chapters for 6 months. Like I'll do it myself. But there's other ones where it's like, okay, they release monthly and it's like I know that they release monthly even though it's a weekly upload. But it's like it's their thing. And it's like, you don't really want to step on their toes. You don't want to be that asshole who snipes.
Here's my take on that, right? So this is all right. So I work for this one group right now. It's called AnimeWaves, right? But the reason why I started working with them to begin with is that the fact that we had this one series called like Subaruto Susan, and they actually came over. They joined our Discord and be like, "Oh, hey, we see you guys are doing the series. You're fucking slow, but like, like what if we help out? Like, oh, let's like combine forces, make a little collab, and like, oh, hey, like if you have a translator, that's cool, but we have some like good cleaners and redrawers, and like if you have a typesetter, cool, but if not, we have one as well, and we can like do something else to try to like speed things up, so to speak." And I thought it was a pretty cool idea. So the thing is too, our group leader, so to speak, so my old group I used to be part of was called Abandoned Group. And then our group leader abandoned us for a month and a half.
Oh no!
Yeah, big yikes. But so I was talking to this guy for a bit, and the old group leader, right? Well, it still is. But anyways, he asked me if I want to be the leader for a bit in case he ever like disappears or so. And I'm like, oh, can you clarify that for me? And then he just disappeared for a month and a half. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm taking the role now. But I was talking to this guy about it. The other group leader came in and seemed to want to collab, and this is my mindset, right? I was thinking to myself, if I'm making a series, right? And if I'm like slow as shit because I gotta like do school or work or anything else, what matters to me most is the readers being able to read, you know? Right. So like if I'm really slow and all that, if someone else can come in and start like pumping out a series with really, really good quality and it's like weekly or like semi-daily or whatever, right? Fantastic. That is fantastic. My book, I would love to see that. So I was under assumption that the other guy would be cool with it as well. So I'm like, hell yeah, man, let's do this. That'd be fucking great. And then yeah, so that's like my take on sniping about it. I think it depends where you're coming from. If you're trying to make things a quality, trying to speed things up, it's for like the reader. I think it's great. But then the guy came back and he was kind of like, oh, but this is like my series. So they have very much this idea of like it's their own series, it's their thing that they're doing and all that. So they don't want anyone else to come on their quote unquote their turf or so. Which in my opinion is kind of ass. Like if you're not gonna come, if you're gonna like be gone for a couple months and all that, bro, it's not even your bro, get out of here, man. That's how I view it. Maybe I'm like extra salty about it.
I can tell he's talking with his hands because I keep hearing this.
Yeah, it's relative to like a salary man. If you ever worked in an office job or you've been part of a project as a project manager and you've had to deal with other department project managers, you'll understand what this feels like. Hey, you're assigned a project and you're like, okay, cool. But then the project that you're on isn't actually yours. It's this guy's department and he hasn't done jack shit for a month. So you and your team are like, well, we can do something to make it better. So you do. And then that guy is like, what the fuck, dude? This is my project. And you're like, what the hell? You weren't doing nothing for a whole month, man. What am I supposed to do? Not doing anything?
Exactly, man.
Welcome to corporate America.
Yeah. Like, office politics don't stop, man. It don't.
I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Office Space, it's a lot like that.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
But to comment a little bit more about that, right? So like how you give the example of like if they haven't done anything in a couple of months. So I think there's like an unspoken rule. If it's been like 6 or 7 months, it's just up for grabs. Like it's seriously up for
Right.
grabs.
Yeah.
Don't have to
Like
talk about it.
if someone's been gone and they haven't updated in over a month, I think that's fair game. Like if this is a translator group who has been pumping stuff out weekly and then they go MIA for a month, it's like, okay, we don't know what happened and people want we're 3 chapters behind. Like, let's pick it up. Like, sure. And if they come back after that month and they get all pissy and it's like, well, you were gone for a month and you didn't have the common decency to at least let us know what happened. It's kind
Here's
of
the thing about it, though. I think they do though to a degree. So there's like a code of like chivalry, so to speak. And what you do is like they'll go onto like their Discord group. Usually at the end of like a chapter, they'll be like, "Oh, join our Discord," so and they'll go in there and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, I've noticed you guys haven't been like uploading as much, whatever. Like, would you want to do what the other guy said? Say, want to join forces, or just say, hey, if you're busy, whatever, is it cool if I just come in and take it anyways?" 'Cause I met other people that said they'd be perfectly cool people sniping their series as long as they ask. If it's asked like, "Oh, hey, are you serious? Can I take it over?" And they're like, "Sure." There's no problem with that, you know.
A lot of times, so long
my
as you communicate beforehand, it's
a lot
okay.
of my examples are not from manga translation, but from light novel translation, where someone might like they only upload to their website, like their what is it called? What's that? WordPress. The upload to their own WordPress website, and they'll be just MIA for a month, and you'll be like, all right, what happened? Like, we don't know. They didn't post an update, and you can't reach them by email. So I get that nowadays a lot of groups have Discord and stuff, and you just DM people, and it's a lot easier to get a hold of people now, which is a great thing.
And there are legit reasons for the the publishing process to break down. Like someone could be sick or have a family emergency that they got to take care of for a couple of weeks.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's not to mention the fact that it's free.
Yeah.
Like,
you
know,
it's hard to complain about certain things.
So how do you feel about groups that actually charge for translation? Because I wouldn't say there are very many of these groups that will translate for money, but I wouldn't say translate for money, but there's a specific group I'm thinking of that I will not name, that if you pay them, I think it's like 15 or 20 bucks, they'll translate like 10 chapters of a series, but usually it's series that have been dropped and no one else is doing it. So that they won't step on people's toes, but they will do that. But it's like they only translate things if you pay them money. How do you feel about
that? Sounds like a pretty good service, honestly.
Yeah. Like again, like I say, it's a service. Yeah. Like if no one else is gonna do it, what are you gonna do? Just sit around and like pray that someone picks it up or so? That's how I view it. I am very biased, being that like I am also one of those people where it's like I'm scaling and all kind of stuff, and be like, man, if I could make money, that'd be fucking great. So like I'm like envious, so to speak, you know. But
I will say that's where you kind of like go away from the legal gray area and just become fully illegal.
That's
because
true.
You are profiting off someone else's work without licensing it.
Right.
That I fully agree. I think that is definitely crossing the line, in my opinion. That's why I asked for donations.
See, it's if you do a $10 donation, you didn't pay me, you're just donating, and then you get to see me translate stuff.
Well, especially if it's a general donation to the person doing it and not for a specific thing. I mean, you got there's definitely a leg to stand on there.
I mean, this is what I do. That would never hold in court. Like if Kodansha caught you doing that, and they'll slap you for fucking cease and desist right away. Like,
Kodansha might not care. Katakawa, on the other hand,
yeah.
Here's the thing, though, right? Like, I don't know. I think there's like this rule of like if something's getting published or so, or like either it's been announced it's going to or already is, just don't touch it. I think like pretty much just about every group is like understandable of that. On top of that, though, I want to know your opinion on this, right? So what I do is that for donations, so to speak, on the end of my chapters, I'm like, oh hey, here's my Patreons, like
here's
my
Patreon
followers,
my
like my Twitch subscribers.
Like, yeah, there are other ways to help out your to help out people you're a fan of. Like,
yeah, and I don't want to like paywalling feels kind of dirty, because then essentially it's like
people donate, we're still gonna be creating content, right? Like that's kind of like how we view it. Like whether or not people pay us money, we're still gonna be cranking out episodes because we like doing this. Yeah. Surprisingly, we like doing this. I don't know why we've been doing it for so long, but we like doing it.
Because we're all insane. Have I ever told you the definition of insanity, John?
Yeah.
That's great though, man.
Yeah, I think that with because I hate waiting on the official translations from oh my god, who's publishing Overlord right now? It's not Seven Seas. It's
No.
oh my god.
I know it too, and I can't think of it. Jamie, look that up.
Yen Press.
Jamie, find the book. Where's the
Yen
book?
Press.
Yen Press. Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yen Press. So Yen Press takes
Collaborative
fucking forever to translate novels. Okay, like a novel, a freaking volume will come out and they'll translate it a year and a half, maybe 2 years later. I hate waiting that long. At least for Overlord, right? So last summer, volumes 15 and 16, I believe, or is it 14 and 15? 2 volumes dropped, right? Within like 6 months of each other. I'm not going to be able to legally read these volumes for about 2 years because of their fucking release schedule. And it sucks. So
and that amount of time
it
it takes to
support
learn
you,
Japanese.
Maruyama. I want to support you. You go talk to Yen Press, Maruyama. You tell them, translate that shit within the month. I'll pay you money.
Do you know what
like,
the funniest
that's
thing
another
about
reason
it?
why I'm not completely against fan translations, because like, dude, this is something I want to read. I actively am willing to pay money for this, but I can't have it legally for 2 fucking years.
That's
And
an
the
ouch,
wheels
man.
of bureaucracy
In a language
are so
that you can
goddamn
read.
slow.
Yeah, and it's like, it's one thing if it's like, I know that I believe Shonen Jump does this, where when the manga chapter gets published, you can pay for monthly Jump, and you can read it like, I think it's like next day or something, or within like a couple hours, like how Crunchyroll does it, or those subtitle things, right?
Yeah.
But so except for manga, and it's like you pay this, I think it's like $10 or $15 a month, and you basically get to read manga.
They call it a simulpub.
Yeah. So
I love that.
I would love to have that, but the problem again, for at least for manga, is that I just have so many different series from so many different publishers that I read, that some are on weekly basis, some are on monthly basis, that it would be impossible for me to find a vendor who would be able to translate all of that. Like, obviously it'd be great if we had one giant service that did this, but we don't. It's not there yet.
I'd
So
love
this
it.
is
I'd love
why-
a service like that for light novels, because like as much as sometimes, as long as you have to wait for manga, sometimes you got to wait, like John with Overlord, sometimes you got to wait for translate, like officially translated versions of light novels for months, if not years.
Yeah, and then for certain novels, like they don't have a weekly or monthly publication. You have to wait till the tankobon gets translated, the whole fucking tankobon, like 3-4 volumes. And that, how long is that going to take? Like freaking months, years. And
that's something I want to talk about, man. Because when I started, like, what's called getting into learning Japanese and all that, big reason why is because like I hate reading things like online. For example, I first started like Komi Can't Communicate. I remember like, I was bought like all of them in like the span of a week. Fucking loved it, right? And I'm like, well, shit. I burned through all like available 9 volumes. What am I gonna do now? It's gonna go read the scanlation versions of it. When I go do that, like it doesn't feel the same, you know, which just kind of sucks. That's why I went over to like just learn Japanese. Like I like having it physically. But yeah. But I was also looking at it. They were like at volume like 20 or so when we were like 9. They're years apart. And it's like, do you want to wait? I'm not going to wait like a couple months just to get a volume. It kind of sucks. And there's no need for it to take that long either, in my opinion. I don't think it takes that long to translate it.
As I said,
it's because they want to be on this release schedule where it's like, okay, well, Japan's had it for like 4 or 5 years. We'll release it in 4 or 5 years till the point, you know, where you'll basically, they're mimicking the release schedule. And it's like, why do you do this? No one wants this, man.
I can explain why, actually.
Okay.
Oh, really? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was translating this one series called The Heroine's Despaired, but I'd be uploading like literally daily. I was going crazy with that series, right? But then there's like the Russian translator who's uploading a chapter weekly, and it's one of those series that kind of sucks to read weekly, in my opinion, because like it's progresses too slowly. So that's why I kind of decided to rush it out. He then reached out to me saying like, oh, hey, bro, like, why are you rushing it out so fast? Why are you uploading so quickly and all that? I'm like, oh, it's because like I can. Essentially, like I can, therefore I will, because it's what I like to do. And he's like, oh, but you're killing all the views, man. Like if you do that, it's not gonna get as much views as compared if you're uploading it weekly.
Right.
And
because
yeah, definitely
you're right, because consumers are the bingers are very in the minor. Like I understand that the way that I consume media is I will literally binge it, then I'll forget about it for years. That's how I read my light novels. I'll binge it to the point where, or my web novels as well, all novels really. I'll binge it to the point where this is the last translation. I'll literally forget about it for 3, 4, 5 years until it gets a manga or an anime and be like, oh yeah, I read that. Maybe I should pick it back up.
Right.
So,
I hear you.
I get it. I get that having a weekly thing, it retains views because like I'm gonna read this one chapter and then every week I'll see it again. It's like, okay, yeah, you'll retain viewership. I know there's a psychology behind it, but
John,
Mind if I
sucks.
get some statistics?
Mr.
for
I
that?
went to read 50 chapters of Skip and Loafer in 2 hours.
I did it in 4 hours because it's a monthly release manga and it's 50 chapters. Yes, because that first episode was so good and I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I want to mention real fast about uploading, because I eventually finished it. There's another website I use where they actually show you the views and all that kind of stuff, right? And I didn't upload there for like I think 2 weeks, something like that. And so it was getting roughly around like 1,000 views on every single chapter. And I disappeared. I finished the series, came back, and I mass uploaded it. And so it went from like roughly 1,000 views. So like literally right here it's like 180, 150, like 170. So like it cut off like 90%.
That's a big
like it's
difference.
a really big difference. And it just literally only reason why is because they don't see it on the front page anymore. They're not constantly seeing it and being reminded to read it.
Is it kind of something like the algorithm on YouTube where it's like you need to upload consistently, but if you're uploading
it's
all the time,
what
it's
it
like
is
not worth it.
On manga aggregate sites, and also like manga decks, for example. We do not condone using manga aggregate sites. However, what people will do, so I've heard, is that they will allegedly they'll just read what's on the front page, because the front page is what has the thumbnails of like the series that people are updating. And you'll be like, oh, hey, I read that, click. Oh, that looks interesting, click.
Y'all have to remember, people are basic ass bitches. They see the first thing,
if it's
and
not
like,
on the front
click that.
page, I'm not gonna click it.
Now, I want to
Unless
point
you're
out, we're
me.
not saying that fans of Anime Club After Dark are basic ass bitches, because you are cultured individuals if you're watching us.
Of course, but I like for me, for what I do, and I know I'm a weirdo, but I'll go through and like I'll click all the stuff on the front page, allegedly click stuff on the front page, so that way I'll have a bookmark of like, here's the cookie saying here are all this was that front page that I last looked. Then I'll go through and click on all the series, allegedly, of all the series that I am reading when they have updated chapters, and I'll just have like 50 tabs open every day of like, here are the updated chapters, until I get to the other row of like, look at, you clicked on all the last time you clicked on all of the front page stuff, and I'll be like, all right, here's my block of reading for today.
Right.
Allegedly.
And I'll do that every day.
I actually like how you use the example of it is like YouTube or anything like that, because here's the thing about these websites, right? These websites reward people for like uploads, for example, of having readers come back. It's all about having the reader come up there every single day. If you finish the series, they're gonna finish it and then leave. There's no point to coming back. So they do try to do their best, try to have you get into the ongoing series and all that kind of stuff.
Right, which is why a lot of translators will do, like, they'll have their own website. Like, you should read it on our website because it's a lot easier. You can get direct ad revenue and other illegal things that you shouldn't be doing to profit off of the series. But
allegedly,
allegedly
on Minecraft.
On Minecraft.
Just if you're talking about anything that's legally gray, just add on Minecraft to the end, and it's like you've satisfied the FBI.
Yeah.
Well, you can build everything in Minecraft. You can build a web browser in Minecraft. Actually, that's pretty interesting.
You can translate manga on Minecraft.
Yeah,
probably.
First episode of Dr. Stone season 3 has a direct Minecraft reference, which is hilarious.
Hell yeah!
Shame no one watches that.
I think a lot of people do watch it, just not us. I think only Chinoda and Natai, right, watch it on our episode, on our podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
Let me ask Natai.
He's pretty sure. Yeah. He watches Dr. Stone, but all right, we should get back to the topic, boys.
Yes.
We're almost done with it.
This might still be part of topic, but I want to know your take on it real fast. So you say you go on like the front page of manga and all that, and so it says like culture. There's a lot of culture stuff on there, right? It's essentially like the thumbnail. A lot of people I think do go after like thumbnails, and I think a lot of scanlation groups are surprisingly after. It's here for like 3 things. One, they're really passionate about translating. A lot of people like me want to become official. Second, odd ego trip, and thirdly, it's called be people after numbers. And I think a lot of people after numbers also go after just like the like edo stuff, like the more like the ecchi genre, so to speak, right? Because it also works like with like the quote unquote the algorithm or so. You go on the front page, you see boobs, I like boobs, and then that way.
I mean, I'm not gonna say it's like 100% of the time, but I have noticed that anytime we upload an episode of the podcast and our thumbnail on YouTube includes tits or ass, we get way more views.
I mean, I'm not knocking it down. I'm just saying, boobs fucking great, but like, I get it. I understand why it's a thing, but yeah, this is something I noticed, and I think that's why there's like more so I say like etchy stuff out there than it is more like slice of, and it's not more slice of life, but like as of like more so like adult stuff like horror or like anything that's really dark themed. I don't really see much of that on there. We guys say that's fair, so to speak. I don't read that much scan related stuff.
I would
but
say
it seems like
sex sells. It definitely does. I know that allegedly this manga aggregate site that supposedly someone uses. They've been uploading like just straight up porn lately, where it's like it's just I'm like, hey, I've seen this before. Oh, it's porn. No wonder I've seen it before. I was reading that yesterday. Oh, crazy. But it's like, I mean, they're trying to drive more clicks to their website.
And to the credit of what you're saying, like obviously it's a big part of the reason why a lot of right before it started, the anime adaptation started airing, and probably while it was airing too, a lot of manga aggregate sites had a lot of traffic on My Dress Up Darling.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, like it makes sense. But like, yeah.
It does. I mean, it sells to a degree. It'll always sell, I think. Which is why people will always use it to get people to click on their stuff.
Yeah.
Not that we would ever do that. No.
Of course. Of
course not. No.
Just the thumbnail for this is going to be a giant pair of like tits, I'm sure.
I'm sure it will be. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Do it.
I think that'd be a good experiment. We do that and we see how the views go with that.
We don't have to experiment. We know. We
have the
numbers. Oh, we've run the numbers.
Yeah, we have already.
I mean, even John will be the first to admit that any thumbnail we've ever put out there that has been even slightly suggestive always gets more clicks.
It needs to be very suggestive with the emoto in there saying, "Ooh woo, Oni-chan, help me translate this." You know, like
okay.
So have that
Step
top
bro,
of the screen.
You
perfect.
Step bro, what are you doing with that pin?
Oh,
all right. Well, you know, I'm moving on.
It's been fun, John. It's been fun.
Yeah, scanlation, right? So yeah, next topic.
Are there cases of scanlators transitioning to an official translation job? Because I do know. All right, I was trying to look this up earlier, where there was a website that did, I believe they did light novel translations that became official. I don't remember what they were called though. Like, I think J Novel Club.
This is like 2 or 3 years ago, wasn't it?
I don't know. It was a long time ago. I don't think it was. I think it was J Novel Club that it was a it was a website that did this illegally, and then it just became legal, and they just started doing it legally.
I remember this. Yeah, it was a big
J
deal.
Novel Club.
It was a big deal when it happened because a lot of people used it, and they're like, "Okay, we're going legit now, guys."
Yeah, I mean, obviously we talk about Crunchyroll did this, where Crunchyroll is a fan site, and now it's an official streaming service.
Oh, they don't like to talk about that though. Club. Crunchyroll does not like to talk about the fact that they used to be a pirate anime site.
Listen, it was a beta run. They were doing it for free it was a social experiment. But yeah, whatever, Crunchyroll. Please sponsor us. But J Novel Club, I believe, was the light novel version of Crunchyroll. So
yes.
I guess the question is, I don't know about any manga translators becoming an official manga publisher or translator like that. I'm sure there have been plenty of people who have found success in the field and become an official translator for series.
I think I mentioned that earlier, but it could have been before it went live. So if so, my bad. But I remember watching an interview about this one Japanese translator, and they asked like, "Oh, how did it affect you getting a career in translation by doing scanlation and all that?" And they essentially said it worked like a resume and it helped them get much more work and all that kind of stuff because they show what they have done. And about it becoming official and all that, what's the difference between it like being illegal and official? They asked for permission. They said sure. It's kind of how I view about it, you know?
Yeah. So because like again, so for a lot of college kids who would do this, they would just it's a fan thing. Because it's very impressive on a resume when you do things when you're not like being forced to do things for this furthering of your skills in this career. It's the same thing in game development, like doing things where I make things outside of what I have to do for my classes, and this is just a project I am working on, like game jams, working with other people in the industry, stuff like that. It's very good to have on your resume. So I know that it would help to be on a fan translate, just to be like, I have translated before. I have done it with certain these series, and this is my work, right? Because it shows that you've done things to further your skills. But I guess I'm asking about like specific, has any like specific translation group ever turned into a legitimate company like J Novel Club or Crunchyroll has in their respective fields?
Oh, the group itself.
Yes, the group itself.
I wouldn't know. I haven't looked into anything like that. I think they just kind of go the illegal route of just like making their own website or so. Because yeah, I'm not sure the whole group about it. Kind of like a backtracking for a little bit. Something I want to mention before I forget about it. I actually tried applying for like an Edo game. Edo game company where they take like Japanese like Edo games, translate over to English, and on like the resume part, so like, oh, like you can send us to past works, but then specific said doesn't have to be official. Like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Doesn't matter if it's like scanlation, illegal, or anything like that. That stuff also counts. I think it's kind of cool because like it's almost like endorsing something. They don't care whatsoever.
Yeah, because like, at the end of the day, it's like, so for if you're publishing a game, quote unquote game, right? If you're just trying to show off your talents, it doesn't matter if you're using licensed stuff. Same thing for video editing. Same thing for sound editing. If I just make supercuts of freaking shit posts on YouTube, but I'm amazing at video editing, that can be put on your resume of like, hey, I can really fucking video edit.
Stay tuned for John's anime poops.
Heck yeah.
Because it's about how much experience you have and how willing you are to commit to this job and to your craft, to your skills. That's what people really want to hire you for. But I was just curious of like, if there was actually, because again, I don't follow manga translator people very much. Like I'm not one of the types to like go to their website and be like, oh, thanks for putting out that episode, guys, or that chapter, guys. I just don't.
I fucking love those people.
Great. I love when people come to my to the podcast and stuff, and they're like, "Hey, we love the episode." You know, I love the comments and stuff, and yet here I am, just like not doing it to other creators.
I know.
You should.
You should.
Oh man.
But yeah, I was just curious about that. That's why that question is even. I think Natai asked this question actually. Was it?
He might have.
I think it's cool because like that's something I actually wanted to do. One thing I was thinking about was like me getting kind of good on the scanlation space, trying to get good at it, and then let's say for example I'm like really confident my scanlation skills and all that kind of stuff. Just going official, just again like be asking for permission, making a website instead of just like uploading it there illegally and ask for money and all that kind of stuff. Like let's say for example start off with like doujinshi artists, like oh I'm gonna like just get a hold of this one guy, ask for permission, be like oh hey like, whatever props I make from it I can give you like 10% blow. I'm not sure.
Parlay your hobby into something actually that makes you money.
Yeah, literally, yeah. And then that can then spawn into like a whole thing. I haven't looked at examples of it. Maybe Comic Keys did that. I'm not sure, but I can see it being a thing, being possible.
I like how Leo's like distinction is like, well, it's just doing the same thing just with permission.
Literally,
yeah, essentially. And some of it is like implied permission. Like
I'm pretty sure. This is a blast from the past now, but I'm pretty sure Hentai Key, the hentai providing website service that used to be around like 15 years ago, I'm pretty sure they were illegal at one point, and then they became official of like, okay, we're just giving we're like same thing for Faku, same thing for Hentai Haven, I believe got bought out by Faku. But
right,
they were fan sites that became official. So don't stop dreaming, guys. Like obviously there are different routes to get to how you want to get to where you want to get to, but just do what you love doing is kind of my advice here.
100%. And that whole like implied consent thing, it's funny that there are a lot of creators that like Maruyama, who shits on people who fan translate his work, but then there's some creators that not only do they not care, they actively encourage it. So Nisio Isin, the guy who created the Monogatari series, would actively go on like the forums and stuff for the people who were fan translating Monogatari and say, no, you translated this wrong.
Amazing.
I love it.
What a fucking
love it.
And he would actually say, no, it should actually be this, and because Nisio Isin actually is somewhat fluent in English, so he said it should really be this in English.
Yeah,
and it's
it's
why
like,
when Vertical did the they got the license to do the Monogatari series, they actually brought Nisio Isin on board to do part of the English translation.
That's
fucking
excellent.
I love it. I love it.
I think it's kind of needed in some cases, if you ask me. 'Cause a
I
lot of times, like they'll keep things vague, and so it's like, oh, what is he trying to say? Actually, that might get revealed later. Talk to the author about it. Yo, bro, what were you meaning with this? It's way too vague. Oh, okay, now I know what he's trying to say.
I just like the fact that Nisio Isin would go look at the fan translations. It's like, no, this is wrong. Change it to this.
Absolute fucking Chad, Nisio Isin.
I know, right?
I didn't.
So great.
I know that one of the biggest like proponents to like why fan translations are fine is that it drives eyes to a series. Like, if I'm being honest, it does. It's not too big of an impact when obviously if a lot of people, if 99% of people who consume a certain thing don't actively contribute money or anything to a work, right? Like we're talking and it's in any field. It could be translation for anime. It could be
online content creation.
Like it's a very small percentage of people of your fan base that actually contribute to your works. But the amount of press and eyes that you'll get on a series, like for example, Chainsaw Man had a very big online Western presence before the anime came out. And to my knowledge, the Japanese fan base hated the anime, but man, those Western people absolutely adored the anime. I love the anime. I'm buying the Blu-ray when it comes out. Like, I'm one of those guys. But if no one,
I don't get the hate behind it, but
Japanese people are weird. That's why.
I know the hate behind it. We've talked about it on the podcast. It's because they actually added scenes into the anime that weren't in the manga.
They weren't true to the source material.
That's almost all of what the hate in Japan is.
They were trying too hard to copy Western ideals with their whole movie thing. Even though that's why I loved it so much. Like, the reason the Japanese fans hated it.
I haven't heard about that. I just hear about like Western people, like American fans are hating on it.
It's funny. It's funny with anime, like the what people love in Japan versus what people love in the West, and particularly like North America, can be vastly different every season. Like, do you know what the biggest? Do you know what the biggest like highest rated and most talked about anime in the winter of 2023 was in Japan?
I don't.
That Loli Oni thing that came out.
Onimai.
Onimai. Yeah. That was the most like popular anime in Japan last season, over Vinland Saga, over Nagatoro, over everything.
To be fair, in the anime, they reference like a bunch of like pop culture things. Like they show Guilty Gear, for example, on the TV that the sister/brother was playing in the background, and it's like I get the type of humor that that show has. It's like it speaks to me as like, yeah, a Japanese person would love this type of humor. Japanese weebs would absolutely adore this show.
But if you ask like us on the podcast or just your average weeb on the street in North America, they'd probably say something like, "Oh, Vinland Saga was pretty good last season."
Right. Mind if I touch this on this real fast before we like get back on topic of scanlation and all that kind of stuff? This is like my take on why I think people didn't like Chainsaw Man, at least over here. I feel like it got really popular, but it was like one of the only series that got popular before the anime adaptation came out. Usually you get into because the anime slapped. I don't know about you guys. The first time I ever saw like my favorite like manga get an anime adaptation, it just like didn't slap as hard because you already know what happened. So it's kind of like, well, that was way more flaccid than I thought. I thought it was gonna be fucking fantastic. I thought it was gonna be absolute banger. For me, it was Komi Can't Communicate. I thought it was gonna be fantastic. Came out, it was so good. It was like didn't hit the same because I already knew about that. I feel like that was like the first experience a lot of people had with Chainsaw Man. They probably put it onto such a giant pedestal, and it came out. It's not gonna reach that. You know, they probably thought like, oh, I'm gonna get an anime adaptation. It'd be crazy.
It's very rare that a adaptation of anything from its source material will slap as hard as the actual source material. Like
when it does, though, man, that's special.
Yeah,
I think Chainsaw Man did
very
that.
subjective though. Like I can think of one off the top of my head. It's Chainsaw Man, where I was like, I love the anime as much as I love the manga. Like the manga,
it depends on what you read first, personally. Like if you've seen the anime first, then show them the manga, they might be like, it doesn't slap as hard as the anime though. Flip it around.
Yeah, but I read the manga first, and I thought it slapped hard.
Right.
Yeah, I think that because there are certain areas in the manga where I'm like, it seems like it's I have opinions of the manga where I'm like, the manga is really good. I think Chainsaw Man's manga is really good. I thought the anime did a really good job at conveying it and putting itself in its own like paces instead of following just the manga. But I do understand that, like, for example, Skip and Loafer this season, the first chapter of the manga was basically the first episode. It not even basically, it is the first episode of the show.
Like
shot for shot remake of every single panel was done from the manga into the anime. And I get that people like that. They want a shot for shot remake of what they're reading. But I do think that like there are certain series where taking the liberties when you're developing an adaptation it's a very hard thing to do, first and foremost, because obviously if the source material is good enough to garner a fan base, especially something like Chainsaw Man, it's huge fan base before even going into the anime, it's going to be very hard to keep people invested in this show if you don't do a shot for shot remake. But then it comes to the point of like, well, what's the point of doing an adaptation if you have to do a shot for shot remake? Like, what about the directors? What about the writers? Do they not get to adapt it? And then there's also like,
is Tsunoda having heat stroke right now?
Are you okay,
Tsunoda? Look, it's very hot.
Oh my god!
I was gonna say, to fuel into the heatness here, a bit of a hot take, right? Yeah, no, shot for shot fucking sucks. I'm just gonna say it kind of, because like you can do so much with animation, and if you're just trying to copy like the style of a manga, you're missing out on the whole point of it being an animation. You can do so much more with it, play much more with it. To bring it back to translation for a bit, it's kind of like the direct translation compared to like putting in some like the English expressions in there and adding a bit more flavor that makes it sound more natural.
The difference between translation and interpretation.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, so, yeah. small side tangent about translations. So that time I reincarnated as a Slime's official translation, I absolutely hate the beginning because they literally translate a bunch of words and they just use the direct translation, and I'm like, this is garbage. I hate this.
You told me
I can't believe
this.
I paid money for this. And I go back to the fan translation because there was obviously a lot more passion for the fan translation than there was for this fucking English official translation. Just saying.
I'm putting into that though. It's hard to say though. If it's necessarily just passion. I mean, I haven't read it, granted, right? But the thing that's hard about being a translator, you want to just try and make it sound as more natural and try and make it sound as natural as possible, right? But when you do that, you get a lot of people will be like, "Oh, bro, like I hate the way this isn't what the Japanese version said. Blah blah. It should be more like direct, whatever. Try to say what they said. It's not your own story writing." So then, like, okay, shit. Let me make it a bit more like direct, more so where they're speaking. You do that, and then you get lambasted by people saying like, "Oh, this is way too much of a direct translation. It sounds stiff as shit. It's pretty garbage." Blah blah. It's can't
a fine
win.
line. It's a fine line.
In my opinion, there is. That fine line is like blurred to the point where like you can't satisfy everyone. Everyone's gonna like prefer one thing or the other.
So I would say people who complain about it being not like one for one translated are probably people who only speak one language and have never actually had to translate something in their life.
Yeah,
because Natai and I have talked about this because he and I both are multilingual, and we've talked about how when you translate something from one language to another, no matter how similar those two languages may be, there is always going to be an element of interpretation because no two languages are exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and this is why I don't understand the hate that things will get if they try it their way. Because again, as a creator, as a translator, as someone who is transposing one media to a different media, right? Regardless of what it is, adapting a manga to a show, vice versa, doesn't matter. You not having that type of freedom to interpret it how you think it's supposed to be done, it's stiffening. It sucks, and no one wants to do it because even if you directly translate it, people are gonna hate it because it's like, oh well, it feels bad. Like it's.
Can I give you a fun tidbit you'll probably never unsee now?
Oh boy,
no.
If you look at anything that's been translated, especially like scanlated or whatever, right, and look at the credits and all that, you'll never see more than one translator because it is absolute hell having two translators work on the same product because they'll never agree on something. They'll be like, it should be translated like this. No, that's not stiff. It should be like this. Blah blah blah. And it's constant back and forth, dude. Oh my god, it's the most frustrating thing on the planet, man. So yeah.
That makes sense.
I mean, it can be even more frustrating, and we've talked about this, and this may end up being like an entire episode of the podcast at some point, how there's been this sort of revelation recently that there have been multiple localizers and translators in the anime industry that have, shall we say, not been doing their due diligence when it comes to translating.
That's putting it very lightly, Alex.
I was trying to be very, very not so mean.
Can you be a bit more clear? Sorry, I'm a bit confused.
There's been people who have been very obviously spinning certain translations to fit their own narratives and politics.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yikes. Gotcha.
So like, I won't say this is like super recent, but a recent example is in the first season of Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. There's a scene where they're talking about clothing, and the translator just randomly put in something about male patriarchy, and that's not anywhere close to what's being said.
What the hell?
Yeah, it's like the whole thing is about how it's difficult to keep. In Japanese, they're talking about how difficult it is to keep like maid outfits clean and spotless. And the translator in the subs or in the dub translated it to because of the male patriarchy, we always have to look like this.
And they got
not even close. What the
I know. But stuff like that. I feel like this is something that we may end up like actually talking on a future episode of the podcast about, because it is something that the difference between translation and interpretation, and there always is going to be a degree of interpretation when you translate things.
Right.
But there's a fine line between interpreting something and changing it to fit your own narrative.
Yeah.
Wait, what I want to take back what I said a bit earlier. Oh, sorry, if you mind me, it's changed real fast. I forget. You said earlier that like someone's only asking for like direct translations, only know one language, right? I'll meet a lot of people that will like try to correct the translations or so, right? And they'd be like, "Oh, it needs to be more direct," but it's because they can read the Japanese version of it that they're like, "Oh, you're playing too much with it," or so. And like, something why I put into there. Sorry. John, what were you going to say?
So, I'm trying to find the episode. Hold on. I forgot who the guest was because I'm a terrible person with names. So let me just
on our podcast.
Yeah.
We've had a
Burger?
limited amount
Yara?
of guests.
No, Yara. Thank you. I forgot Yara's name.
Yara Naika.
I was like, I remember what Yara was in.
Yeah, Yara Naika, who is a voice actor who does spicy stuff.
Hell yeah.
Voice actor. So Yara was talking about translating like there is a Japanese saying called it literally translates to meat toilet, right? Which is like how do you localize that into English? Because the literal translation is a meat toilet. What does it mean? It kind of means like she's everyone uses her type of deal, right? She's a loose person,
a cum slut.
Yeah,
say cum dumpster.
I that's what I said. I was like, I'd just call him a cum dumpster. But
there's ways to go about it.
There are ways to go about it, but like in my opinion, with people who are like, I want direct translation, like, you really, bro, you want me to say meat toilet? You want that? that can get you off calling her a meat
some people,
toilet?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, some people might actually want that.
I get that. Because I complained about it literally 5 seconds ago about translating certain, like, he calls in the very first chapter, he calls his chief a pig-headed man, but he calls him Mr. Piggy supervisor or something. And I'm just like, okay, obviously he does call him a fat bastard, but could have just said a fat bastard instead of like directly translating it, bro. Like, what the hell?
I hear you. Another direction that I think about right now, they say a boob bag. That's another like Japanese expression right there. It's saying someone has some like big bahunga hungas, like they say boob bag.
Oinga boingas, oingas. Oh,
that's more fun though. I'd rather translate that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, what is it? So in Japanese, they co-opted the English word bitch, but it doesn't mean bitch in Japanese. It means slut.
Yeah.
Bitchy.
That's another thing that it's called machine translation. I forgot I mentioned it a bit earlier, but when we're talking about like machine translations and how it gets confused a lot, they'll use like Japanglish for a lot of words, and so it sound like the one we have over in English. So let's say, for example, like boom means like boom, right? But it doesn't mean boom like as an explosion, but like as in a fat is blowing up.
Every time I hear that now, especially if I hear a Japanese person think about it, I only think about that scene in Toradora where she comes down the stairs and boom, boom, boom.
I haven't seen it, but yeah. I think that's another cool thing to note about as well. That
Japanese more and more seems to be just co-opting English words into their actual.
They are
vernacular.
doing that. Yeah, every day
Dude, it's
they're
getting
adding
so bad.
new is it katakana? Just like literally just adding English words.
In a sense, that's what they use.
Apparently, there is an actual Japanese word for rival. I've never heard anyone say it in English or in anime. They always say rival. But apparently, there is a Japanese word for rival.
Can I tell you the word I hate the absolute most that I hear is brainstorming. It means brainstorming. I'm like, God damn it. But like the way over there, like because like it's English, they use it because like, oh, it sounds elegant. Like, oh, it sounds so sophisticated. It's English. Oh,
yeah,
like,
no, I'm so
brainstorming.
Funny thing about Japanese, that's been a thing for a long time. Like I remember the like in the 90s and stuff, knowing just random English words and putting it in your band name was just seen as edgy. Like it was just the thing.
Yeah,
right.
You don't need to know what it means, you know, just having, and they have that, you'll see it sometimes on their clothes in like a lot of different areas where they just have like really random English in like curse words and stuff, like fuck the what. And it'll just be like, oh, it's English, it's edgy, it's leading. It's like, what?
I mean, we have that over here, man. People just have like random Japanese all over their shirts and such, you know?
Or they'll get them tattooed to their bodies and they don't even know what it means.
Yeah,
literally.
Bunch.
I love it when
I've seen
like you hear stories about people that get Chinese characters tattooed.
Yeah, on, like number 5, Peking duck like, number 5.
And like they go to like Chinese restaurants and someone says, "Why do you have duck translate or written on your arm?" Well, no, it means courage.
So that's kind of like to expand a little bit on like characters and stuff. So with
wait, actually, do you mind before we get into that? I want to mention one thing I thought was really funny.
Yeah, sure.
So I really love it when you see like a company will just like clearly use machine translated for things. Like I saw this one shirt, it says "Soto miru," which means look out, and it's supposed to kind of give that example of like, oh, look out, man, kind of give like that edgy vibe, whatever. And in Japanese, it literally means like look outside. Like, it doesn't mean like. Oh my god!
Yeah,
so yeah, I just wanted to mention that it's goofy, man.
You remember when Polka said, "How do you say let's go in English?" That was
let's
great.
Go.
How do you say let's go in English?
That's great. So, John, what were you gonna say earlier?
Well, I was gonna say with Asian language, with how the kanji and characters and stuff work, right? Like with your actual letters, you chopping off something off of a certain word will change how you read that word. And people don't know this about Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. And I'm like, you can't just like, here's a phrase you really like, but you can't get the full thing on a sleeve or whatever. So you say, oh, well, this beginning half means this, so I'll just take that thing. I'm like, that completely changes the meaning of the word.
Which that's something you have to translate. That's something you have to translate sometimes in anime and manga is when a character is introduced themselves, sometimes they'll be talking about how to write their name in kanji. Like, how the fuck do you translate that into English?
Yeah, I remember this one scene. I was translating this one series, and it's like torture porn, right?
Oh, nice.
And so they had to like engrave like what's called the word slave for it, and so they had to mention like, oh, each part of the straight, like, oh, I'm gonna do like this part of like this word or whatever, right? And so it's like symbols make up bigger parts of kanji and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, not gonna lie, I just straight up like put in the kanji in the text. I'm like, this is what they're trying to talk about, by the way. This is what they're referring to. And it's the only way to go about it, in that particular sense. But
hard.
Yeah, it kind of nuts. Another thing too that I thought was pretty cool that I started doing today. I don't know how to translate it well, so I'm doing a series where it's about trans. This one trans girl and her experience with it. And she met this one person. So here's the thing about Japanese reading. There's 3 different types of writing for scripts, right? So they kind of like an alphabet, kind of what we have, like hiragana, right? And then there's kanji, which is like the super crazy complicated stuff, but they don't have that the entire thing. They'll usually be for like a little like for a word or so. They'll have it for like the first few letters or so, right? But anyways, right? So when you're reading something,
go to a ramen shop and it's all in kanji, and good luck.
Yeah. Well, like all Japanese names for the most part are also written in kanji.
True. But what I was trying to get with is I lost my train of thought. Wait 1 sec.
Nice.
This is the ADHD. I was literally just talking about it.
They have hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Yes, and then
yes. And so
some weird
the thing is, if you're reading something,
that's not one.
Reminds us of what all we use. But anyways,
it's just Romanized.
so the thing that I think here's the thing is when you see kanji, you don't know how to pronounce it. A lot of times they have something called furigana, which is literally just hiragana but really, really small, and it's shown to then explain to you how it's pronounced, right?
Yeah.
And so the series I'm using, they don't ever use that for the most part. Usually more adult series don't use the way you pronounce it, the furigana in there. But
You're old enough, you should know what these words mean.
Essentially, yes. But one thing that's super cool, keep in mind that this is talking about like this trans woman, right? Was talking about how she met the first ever like trans person she's met. And when it was talking about, it's like, oh, the first ever then I met this guy, is what it literally says. So the kanji is for guy, but then the furigana for it is for person instead. So like you say guys like otoko, but it says hito on the thing. So it's kind of like when you first look at it, it says guy, but when you look past like the surface layer, it's a person. And I think it's super, super cool. How do I translate that? I have zero idea. It's like tricky stuff like that. But I think there was a reason why I mentioned that earlier. I completely forgot the reason why I brought it up, but I think it's just something really cool about Japanese language and its wordplay.
In my native language, there's a way to call things a thing, and you can't ever confuse it. Like people are people, right? So you can't call a person a thing, and you can't confuse it. So like when you're referring to things that are alive, you'll use the you'll say like tao. Tao is like them, right? And then you can be like, oh, but if you say like thing instead, it's like wrong. It's just wrong. You don't say that. you don't call them that.
They have that in
It's just
Japanese
like,
too. Yeah.
it's just like that's just grammar, man. That's just how it works. So it's hard to translate that because in English we have such a robust something is a thing. It could be a person, a thing, something,
A house.
a house. Who knows, bro? Like, and then in Asian language, like, nah, we don't have that. You can't do that.
Crazy, man.
Man, languages is crazy.
That's what it was. Like, so like if I say itao, like those two, right? It means like to that is literally what it translates to. But nom is like enom, it's like two things. So that is like to that also, but it means object. Like I would have if I have like two cans, right? Itao, like enom, but if I have two people, itao, like two people. But it's different.
Essentially, one's for like living things and one's for like not living things, right? That type of thing, or
because so when you say like if you're referring to animals, pets and stuff, you would refer to them as nom because they're a possession. Nom is like a thing you can hold, a possession, something that you can own. So if you use that to refer to a person, you're basically calling them a slave because you're calling this thing a person a slave because they're your thing, your item. So it's like it's interesting language when you have it like that, where it's like, how do you?
So it would be considered very
this?
rude to call someone that.
Yeah, essentially, it's like if I called you
very common isekai.
Yeah, if I called you a thing, you would be essentially I'm insulting you, calling you a slave, and it's not proper grammar. First and foremost, but like, how do you translate that into English, right? Like, it's like they both mean a thing or two things, but the thing could be alive or not alive, or something could be possessed, not possessed, and it's like these are like the small translation things that people don't get if they don't speak a different language.
Yeah,
that's
it's
why
tricky,
I always encourage people, like whatever language it is, become multilingual. It will not only will it help you appreciate your native language a lot more, it will also open up like the world to you more.
I agree with that. One thing I want to mention real fast. Oh,
okay,
go ahead.
I don't know if you want to go ahead first. Fine.
No. I was gonna do a wrap up thing and ask you what your favorite anime was, because like we are an anime podcast. I guess I have to ask this. Right?
I got you.
Yeah, go ahead.
One
last thing.
One thing I want to mention about like translation, all that kind of stuff, because at first, before I got into translating, or I learned too much about Japanese and all that, I always thought, oh yeah, translation must be easy because you just take what they're saying, put it to English, simple as that, right? And the more I'm realizing that, like, it's super weird because I'll talk to people, I'll explain to them what they're saying in Japanese, but I'm struggling to put it in a good English sentence, and then they'll understand it. They'll be, fully fluent in English and all that kind of stuff, right? But there's a lot of a creative element to it because a lot of it is creative writing, and I didn't realize that before I got into translation. And it's like I was thinking different expressions, or like how to make characters sound like a certain way and all that kind of stuff, is making it sound fun overall. It's because just taking it directly and kind of putting it over sounds lame, and you have to play with a lot of it. And something I was not aware of whatsoever before I got into it, and then I realized, wow, everything I'm writing sounds really stiff and garbage. Why is that? Oh, okay, I completely ignored that aspect of it. And which then leads me to it's called think about to become a good Japanese translator. It's kind of weird. I started learning Japanese so I can watch anime without subtitles, right? But now I watch anime with subtitles, English subtitles, because okay, now how does this translator do it? Because how are they making it sound better? So when the full circle. But yeah, that's why I wanted to mention real fast. I thought it was pretty neat. So yeah, John, you want to ask me what my favorite anime was?
Yeah, what's your favorite anime, Leo? We are an anime podcast after all.
Oof, dude. All right, both of them isekai. I'm kind of isekai trash a little bit. All right,
yeah,
I'm the king of isekai trash, bro. Let's go.
Fuck yeah. I'd say it's either between ReZero or Mushoku Tensei. Very, very basic. I'll wear with pride.
We are big fans,
but I love Mushoku Tensei.
We are big fans of Mushoku Tensei on this podcast. We really are.
Yeah, that was the very first web novel I ever finished reading, like and completed a series. It was Mushoku
What's
Tensei.
your take on it? Do you keep getting better, or
here we go?
So I think the anime has been doing a bang up job at doing it, but the novel itself is so much better. They miss so much nuance.
What?
Because I think the novel, because there's so many small micro things that happen and if you guys want to know my opinion on it, check out the Mushoku Tensei spoiler cast, because we have done episodes where I talk about this.
We did 2 spoiler casts on Mushoku Tensei.
There are a lot of micro things in the anime that they just completely just skip over, which I'm like, it builds a little bit of character and lets you know more about like Rudy, like, because this is a story about Rudy and how he basically transforms himself from a shitty person to a better person. And these small things that affirm his feelings, like in the anime, they don't show Eris's grandpa like ever showing any love for Rudy and that impact that it has on Rudy. Because one of the very scenes that they completely skip is like they show his birthday where they're like, happy birthday, Rudy, you're an adult now or whatever. You finally turned 12 or 13. I don't remember the age. But this is such a moving moment in the novel, because at this point he's lived at this house for like a year and he's never felt welcomed. And it's been such a long time that people have celebrated his birthday, celebrated him, right? It's such a key and crucial moment to his well-being, to his mental state, and they just completely ignore that in the fucking anime. And I'm like, bro, this is development that matters because it's about Rudy. But I'm like, okay, yeah, does it really matter? Does it change the grand scheme of things? No, but I like those small little things that are there because it shows growth. And it's like, I can't believe they would not include something.
We talked about how much we appreciate. We talked about on the podcast recently how much we all appreciate the quiet moments in adaptations.
Yeah.
Like in Chainsaw Man, Aki's morning routine, which isn't in the manga.
Yeah, and I loved what it did for his development of a character. And then there's the people who hated it because they're like, oh wow, I can't believe my whole family was murdered and he's making coffee.
One thing I want to mention real fast about Alex, you said that the morning routine wasn't in the manga. It is, but it's just in the Takobans and the extras.
Yeah, but it wasn't in the original publication.
Gotcha. But yeah, fuck. There was something I want to say earlier, but I completely forgot as well. Oh no, all right. So here's one thing I want to ask, right? Without spoiling it, because I talked to someone else about it, Mushoku Tensei, and they said that as the series went on, like in the novels and such, it became fan fiction. It became garbage. What's your guys' take on it? Did it get worse or did it get better?
I haven't read it, so I can't.
I'm the only one who has read this. Yeah. I think that it definitely. I'm really trying not to spoil it, but I definitely think the quality and the pacing definitely drop off towards the end. Fuck.
You've ruined his entire day.
But I'm hopeful because the anime is different. Like I read originally the web novel. I don't know how, and they're adapting the light novel. There's a difference here, right? Web novel is the unedited. This is what I published.
First draft.
This is the first draft. I had no editor. Light novel is okay. We have an official publication. I have an editor. Like for example, Overlord's web novel does not have the best character, Albedo. Albedo was not a character that ever existed in the web novel. And when Maruyama went to make it a light novel, they're like, hey, we should include this other character because you should. And now Albedo exists in the light novel. So it's not to say that I've never read the light novel, only the web novel, the original. So they might do something. It could still be changed. It could be better. And that's my point. Like, so I think that because there are a lot of things that I didn't like at the end of Mushoku Tensei. because it's like the pacing again, it just kind of wraps up. But again, it's a web novel, it's unpolished. The light novel I haven't read, so I don't know. I'm hoping it's completely polished because I believe the light novel is still publishing, or it has
I was gonna
recently
say,
finished
did they
publishing.
not upload it for like years or something like that? I thought they just like stopped uploading for whatever reason when I last checked like a couple months ago or so.
I have
Which
no
kind of
idea.
leads to me like, oh, why people are typing series all of a sudden?
The
Just
light
upload it.
novel,
But
the light novel finished publishing in November of 2022. So
Yeah,
last
see,
year,
it
the English
just
version or
recently,
Japanese
yeah.
version?
the Japanese version.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
so
English version.
The original run for the light novel was January of 2014, and it ended last year in November.
No, I'm sorry. What was the latest like release of the English version?
Let me look that up real quick.
Okay.
No, not the manga. I want the light novel, please. Thank you.
Yeah, because I know that the for Mushoku Tensei in the web novel, there's a bunch of like afterwards where there's one specific one where fans were just like outraged over that he literally cancels it, and I'm just like, okay, I hated that. I hated this chapter as well. It was fucking disgusting, and I'm not saying a good thing he fucking took it back, but bro, why did you do that? Why it ends on such a good note of the ending from Mushoku Tensei, and then this chapter drops, and I'm like, I hate this. You didn't have to do this, but you did.
Wait, I'm lost. Wait, is that in the anime you're talking about, or
in the original web novel, after he finishes the series, after like chapter I think 19 or 22 or 21, whatever it was,
right?
He releases afterwards like epilogue novel updates, and there's a certain
Right.
chapter that he releases that the backlash that he received was so bad that he unofficially he took it out. He was like, okay, all right, I heard you guys, I'm not releasing this is no longer canon, guys. And
That's
it's
crazy.
because it's such a, and I'm like, if this was in a light novel, this would never be published. Your editor would have been like, delete that shit right now, because it was that bad of a fucking chapter.
God damn.
So there are 26 total volumes of the light novel, and as of today, which we're recording this the first week of April, all but the final volume of the light novel has officially been translated into English.
Oh, nice.
Well, fuck.
Oh,
I take back what I
wow.
said earlier. I thought it was like they abandoned it for a little bit or so.
No, volume 25 published on December 26th, this is 2023. This is the most recent one to come out in English is volume 19. These are the planned release dates. Pardon me.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So the volume 25 is scheduled to come out December 26, 2023.
Dang, we're eating good then. That's a lot of series in a couple of volumes in the year. All right, sweet. Nice.
So anyway, I think we should definitely wrap this up. We've been recording for over 2 hours.
It's been a hot minute.
It's literally for Chinoda, it has been literally a very hot minute.
I would love to eat. That'd be great.
Yeah, I gotta go eat too. But anyway, thank you, Leo, for being on. It's been absolutely wonderful having you on to talk about this. If we ever do another episode of the podcast where we talk about stuff like this, we'd love to have you back.
Dude, I'd love to be back on, man. Dude, it's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
So before we actually do the outros, I want to give you a chance to plug anything you want to. You want to talk about a series you're currently working on, where people can find you, how people can get in touch with you. Go for it.
Yeah. So I'm translating 2 series. One series I just finished translating. If you want to check it out, The Heroine's Despair of Manga Decks, doing Zanki 99 Manga Decks. If you want to see how the actual process works out, I stream all the translations over at twitch.tv Rhythm 162. And then you can go in there and see how everything's done and interact with me live on Twitch. So, yeah, that's my shameless plug.
And I'll be putting a link to your Twitch channel down in the description.
Go click it.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everyone for stopping by. Thank you, Leo, for being on. It's been absolutely fantastic. I don't know why this is not working. No, I don't want to open up Netflix. Thank you very much. Anyway, I cannot for the life of me do what I want to do right now. Fuck you, Google Drive.
Anyway, thank you all out there for stopping by to listen to us. Join the Discord with the links down below. Check out Leo, man. Like, it's pretty interesting that don't lie. All of you have at one point in your life consumed illegally manga. Don't lie to me. I know this.
Yeah, he
Drawing
writes.
everyone out. Yeah.
He's right.
Facts.
But yeah, thank you everyone out there for dropping in to listen to this. Check the description below where you can find links to Anime Club After Dark on Twitch, on social media, and on Discord. Like I said, I will also put a link to Leo's Twitch down below as well. Check out our merch store. Any purchases you make there do really, really help us out. With that, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, guys.
Bye-bye. Thanks for joining.
Oh God, Chino's about to pass out from heat exhaustion.
He's dying.
I'm so sorry about that. I had that entire part blocked with like a text document. I didn't realize that till now. It's like, oh, can we end? So I'm dying of heat. I'm like, oh fuck. I didn't realize that was there.
All right.
Oh, my apologies, man.